Chapter 1604. Under the dumbfounded gazes of all the dragons, the dragon cave underwent another earth-shattering change. It shrank by another third. Immediately, the sound of people sucking in cold breaths rose and fell one after another among the dragon clan. The change in the dragon cave was too unexpected. The change was so fast that it was too much for the eyes to take in. No one knew what would happen next. The dragons looked at each other, not knowing what to do. Could it be that they were just going to watch it continue to shrink? The Dragon King seemed to have realized something. He suddenly took a few steps forward, trying to stop all of this. But before he could touch the dragon cave, it disappeared. Yes, it disappeared into thin air in front of all the dragons. The air froze, and the surroundings were dead silent. A cry of surprise sounded from the dragons. Then, loud cries rose and fell one after another. The dragon cave actually disappeared. The Dragon King's pupils constricted, and his mind was shaken. He couldn't remember how many years it had been since he was so shocked. His heart seemed to be about to jump out of his throat. He had imagined many situations, but this was definitely not the case. The dragon cave disappeared, but another figure jumped into the eyes of all the dragons. Without a doubt, this figure immediately became the focus of everyone's attention. Tang Zheng. He was floating in the air with his eyes closed, as if he was resting. Tang Zheng's consciousness was immersed in the heaven realm. He did not expect the sky-swallowing technique to be so powerful. It did not take long for it to absorb the dragon cave. The dragon cave did not disappear. Instead, it shifted its position and entered the heaven realm. Above the 9 heavens of the heaven realm, a huge black cloud floated. It was exactly the same as the dragon cave in the dragon realm. Lightning flashed in the clouds, and it was especially eye-catching. With a thought, Tang Zheng's consciousness entered the dragon cave. He could already completely control the dragon cave. The size and strength of the lightning were all under his control. From now on, he could use the lightning in the heaven realm to refine others. Of course, that person would first have to enter the heaven realm and not be turned into energy. He could not calm down for a long time. He was surprised by the power of the sky-swallowing technique. Of course, he was also surprised by the new changes in the sky-swallowing technique. After the heaven realm completely absorbed the dragon cave, a wave of energy surged out from the dragon cave and filled the sky. Then, it was quickly absorbed by the heaven realm. He seemed to have comprehended something. With a flash of inspiration, he thought to himself, the sky-swallowing technique is finally about to break through. The sky-swallowing technique was only one step away from the final realm. Boom, 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 boom. Rumble, rumble, rumble. A series of loud noises rang out in the heaven realm. At the same time, a similar sound rang out in his body. It seemed that the heaven realm had some kind of connection with his body. The heaven realm also indirectly affected his body. All of the dragon clans were attracted by the loud sound. Pairs of dragon eyes were wide open as they stared straight at Tang Zheng, not knowing what would happen to him. Boom, 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 boom. Heaven dragon dragon. Boom, 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 boom. To boom, to-do-do-do. Boom, to-to-boom. To boom, boom. Naturally, many gazes fell on the Dragon King. They would have to listen to the Dragon King's orders. The Dragon King seemed to have been petrified. He stared blankly at Tang Zheng as the series of loud booms echoed in his ears. He couldn't make up his mind either. He had experienced the power of the Dragon Cave. Seeing that the Dragon Clan had disappeared in Tang Zheng's hands, he couldn't figure out what was going on with Tang Zheng. At this critical moment, he didn't dare to act rashly. The Dragon King didn't dare to move, and neither did the other Dragon Clan. All the Dragon Clans seemed to have been petrified as they stared at Tang Zheng without blinking. Rumble. The sound became louder and louder. It was like a war drum, extremely intense. The Dragon King's eyelids twitched along with the rhythm. Suddenly, he realized that the loud sound had reached its peak. He had an idea and shouted, "Stop him!" The 8 great dragon ambassadors were ready. When they heard the order, The 8 great dragon ambassadors rushed out together. All kinds of magic treasures flew out and attacked Tang Zheng at the same time. When the golden dragon saw this, he was so scared that his soul trembled. However, he didn't retreat. Instead, he shook his body and transformed into a giant dragon. He roared into the sky and faced the 8 great dragon ambassadors. But how could he be a match for the dragon ambassadors? With just one move, the golden light around his body dimmed. His body shook violently and quickly fell to the ground. The 8 great dragon ambassadors' attacks weren't affected much because of this small interlude. As expected, 8 magic treasures with different lights attacked the only target, Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng seemed to be dead for sure. After all, this was the combined attack of the 8 dragon envoys, and the other dragon clans had never seen this scene before. In their subconscious, other than the Dragon King, there was definitely no other dragon claness that could take this attack. Suddenly, Tang Zheng opened his eyes. His eyes were as black as ink. There was no white in them. They were a bottomless black. Even his pupils were no exception. They were completely black. A vortex appeared in each of his pupils. It kept spinning, strange and mysterious. The 8 great dragon ambassadors were shocked. They felt that something was wrong from this scene. But the arrow was already on the bow. They had to release it. They were getting closer and closer to Tang Zheng. 10 meters, 5 meters, 1 meter, 1 millimeter. The 8 great dragon ambassadors were almost on Tang Zheng's body. It seemed that in the next second he wouldn't be able to escape the attack of the magic treasures. However, this scene froze. The 8 great dragon ambassadors couldn't move forward anymore. An invisible force came from behind. It was like a claw that grabbed them tightly. "Look at the sky!" One of the dragons cried out in shock. A huge black hole appeared in the sky. It was aimed at the 8 great dragon ambassadors. 2 vortexes were spinning in the sky. They were like Tang Zheng's eyes. The terrifying force was emitted from these 2 vortexes. It sucked the 8 great dragon ambassadors in. No matter how hard they struggled, it was useless. What's going on? The Dragon King cried in his heart. He couldn't figure it out no matter how hard he scratched his head. Tang Zheng's lips curled into a smile. It was the smile of a victor. His lips moved slightly as he muttered to himself, "The heaven-devouring realm is indeed mysterious. It can even devour the heavens. It's not enough to deal with you 8 great dragon ambassadors." The heaven-devouring realm. Tang Zheng had gone through a lot of hardships and finally reached this realm. The heaven-devouring technique's great perfection realm. Ever since the heaven-devouring technique was created, other than the founder, Tang Zheng was the only one who had reached this realm and achieved this achievement. At this point, the heaven-devouring technique was completed in one go. It was true to its name. It could really devour the heavens. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1605. The 8 dragon envoys danced and struggled with all their might, trying to break free from the attraction of the sky-swallowing skill. It was a comical scene. The other dragons were dumbfounded. After all, the 8 dragon envoys were slightly inferior to the Dragon King. Even the Dragon King would not dare to let his guard down when the 8 dragon envoys joined forces. The Dragon King was shocked. His face was pale as he shouted, "Stop!" If anything happened to the 8 dragon envoys, it would be a painful blow to him as the Dragon King. The Dragon King could not retreat. He had to save the dragon envoys. His figure flashed, and a golden light flew out from his hand. Fast. Seeing this, there was only one thought in his mind. The golden light was too fast. It was probably as fast as the shooting sun arrow. Without a single thought, the golden light arrived in front of Tang Zheng and attacked Tang Zheng, forcing him to stop and helping the dragon envoy out of this predicament. "Dragon Blade!" The dragon clan exclaimed. They recognized the golden light. It was the Dragon King's treasure, called the Dragon Blade. It was a sacred weapon with terrifying power. Among the Dragon Clan, no one dared to fight against the Dragon Blade, let alone successfully. Pairs of eyes stared at the Dragon Blade. They guessed that Tang Zheng would not be able to withstand such a terrifying attack. Tang Zheng's pupils constricted. He also fixed his gaze on the Dragon Blade. He could already feel the surging power. It was sharp and hot, as if it was going to tear him apart. Sky-swallowing skill. Tang Jing roared. The two black vortexes in the sky spun wildly. The mighty power directly locked onto the dragon blade from afar. The dragon blade stopped. It stopped right in front of Tang Zheng's face. Advertisement. The dragon blade's attack was aimed at the vital point. It was powerful, but Tang Jing did not even blink. Looking at the dragon blade that was close to him, he held his breath. He could clearly feel the power of the dragon blade, but it was firmly controlled by the sky-swallowing skill. He could not move at all. The other dragons were shocked. They looked at this scene in disbelief. Why did the dragon blade stop? Especially at such a terrifying speed. It was as if it had stopped abruptly. How did he do it? Everyone subconsciously turned to look at the Dragon King, wondering if the Dragon King had stopped on purpose. However, when everyone looked at the Dragon King, they found that his face was pale. He had already raised both of his hands, and his fingers were spread open as he controlled the dragon blade from afar. All of this wasn't because the Dragon King had deliberately stopped, but because Tang Jing had blocked the attack of the dragon blade. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Even the excitement of the 8 great dragon envoys disappeared. They thought that with the Dragon King's help, they would definitely be able to escape. But now, not only were they unable to escape, even the Dragon King was involved. How powerful was that kid? 8 pairs of eyes stared at him, but they couldn't see through him. Tang Zheng's gaze turned cold as he stared at the Dragon King and said, "We agreed that I would enter the dragon cave and you would agree to my conditions. But you went back on your words and actually attacked me." The Dragon King clenched his teeth, his expression fluctuating, then became firm and said, "You can't blame me. Could it be that the disappearance of the dragon cave has nothing to do with you?" Tang Zheng naturally couldn't deny it and said openly, "The dragon cave has already been moved to another place under my control. In the future, it will be able to unleash even more power. It's better than leaving it here and wasting it." "What? Where did you move the dragon cave to?" The Dragon King turned pale with fright. This news was like a bolt from the blue, deeply shaking his heart. Tang Jing smiled faintly and said, "You don't have to worry about that. The dragon cave is an item of the dragon domain. How can it fall into your hands?" The Dragon King berated loudly. Tang Zheng was unmoved and said, "If you didn't want to use the dragon cave to deal with me, it naturally wouldn't have fallen into my control." The Dragon King gasped for breath, speechless. Indeed, if he didn't want to use the dragon cave to deal with Tang Zheng, how could he have suffered a double loss? "How did you control the dragon cave?" The Dragon King was puzzled. Tang Zheng pointed at the 2 black holes in the air and said, "Of course it's the sky-swallowing technique. I can even suck away the dragon cave. Do you think the 8 great dragon envoys and the dragon blade can resist the sky-swallowing technique?" The Dragon King couldn't answer, but his silence already represented the answer. He also didn't dare to be 100% sure that his side could resist the sky-swallowing technique. After all, the dragon cave had disappeared. What if they followed in his footsteps? Seeing the Dragon King sitting like a candle and speechless, the hearts of the other dragons also wavered. They looked left, right, and looked at each other in dismay, not knowing what to do. "Master." Suddenly, the golden dragon couldn't block the attacks of the 8 great dragon envoys and fell down, but now it flew up again. Tang Zheng's gaze turned and stared at the golden dragon, asking, "How are you?" The golden dragon shook its head, "I'm fine." Tang Zheng's gaze sank and landed on the 8 great dragon envoys, saying, "You all bullied me with numbers. Do you think you're very powerful? I will make you all pay for what you've done." What? The sky-swallowing technique's power increased greatly, and the 8 great dragon envoys couldn't resist anymore, flying towards the black hole. Ugh. The 8 great dragon envoys screamed. They never thought that the Dragon King's attack wouldn't affect Tang Jing too much, and he still had the energy to deal with them. The Dragon King roared, and with a shake of his body he actually turned into a dragon. That huge body made Tang Zheng's heartstrings tremble. The Dragon King's body was much bigger than the other dragons, almost occupying half of the sky. The other dragons all retreated, trembling in fear, and prostrated themselves before the Dragon King. The Dragon King's might. No dragon could resist it, and even the golden dragon couldn't help but bend down, his face pale. Only Tang Zheng's body stood straight. A faint mysterious aura was emitted from his body. This aura that didn't seem strong went up against the Dragon King's might. The air vibrated, but he didn't seem to be at a disadvantage. Instead, it was the Dragon King's expression that changed, and he roared uneasily, "What is this?" A tremor that came from the depths of his soul arose spontaneously. Tang Zheng was startled, but immediately realized that this was the Dragon God's might. Although he had only integrated a part of the Dragon God's might, it was still more powerful than the Dragon King's might, and it was more shocking. The Dragon God's might was triggered by provocation, and it usually hid in Tang Zheng's body. Since the Dragon King dared to use the Dragon God's might to suppress him, it was naturally triggered. All the prostrating dragons raised their heads in confusion and looked at Tang Zheng. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. They didn't understand how he could emit such a terrifying Dragon God's might. They didn't dare to have any thoughts of being rash, and could only lower their heads even more. The 8 great dragon envoys were trembling in fear. In the face of such a Dragon God's might, they couldn't help but regret their previous disrespect and rashness. The Dragon King's huge body floated in midair, and his head was looking at Tang Zheng. The Dragon God's might had unknowingly been suppressed, and his gaze was changing again and again. The trembling and fear that went deep into his dragon soul wasn't something he could control or resist. Chapter 1606. Tang Zheng stood proudly, exuding the dragon aura of the Dragon God. All the dragons prostrated themselves, and even the Dragon King bent his proud bones. The dragon blade's attack naturally disappeared without a trace. Tang Zheng's fingers clamped down, and 2 fingers firmly clamped down on the dragon blade. The dragon blade was very quiet and did not move at all. Seeing this, the Dragon King's expression changed. He opened his huge dragon mouth, but did not dare to resist. Because the trembling of the dragon's soul had not disappeared, and he could not resist at all. Tang Zheng saw through the Dragon King's mood, but was also shocked by the effect of the Dragon God's dragon aura. He said, "Dragon King, I know you are not convinced, but you can attack." The Dragon King did not even dare to have this thought, because the dragon's soul had already strongly suppressed this point. The other dragons saw the Dragon King's reaction and all sucked in a breath of cold air. Not only them, but even the Dragon King did not dare to resist. Then wouldn't this Tang Zheng be the new master of the dragon domain? When they thought of this, they were deeply shocked and immediately lowered their heads even more. In midair, the 8 dragon envoys had already flown to the edge of the black hole. Seeing that they were about to be sucked in, the dragon envoys could not resist at all, as if they had already accepted their fate. Suddenly, the whirlpool in the black hole stopped spinning, and the suction force disappeared. The 8 dragon envoys relaxed, but still did not dare to resist. They could only look at the black hole in front of them in shock, and their hearts almost stopped. Tang Zheng controlled the situation and firmly held the initiative. He pondered for a moment, then walked towards the Dragon King. The Dragon King could not understand Tang Zheng's thoughts, and could not retreat even if he wanted to. He could only watch as Tang Zheng approached him. The other dragons looked up and watched this scene with mixed feelings. They did not know what Tang Zheng was going to do. Kill the Dragon King and replace him? Thinking of this, all the dragons trembled and panicked. They were completely shrouded in fear. Finally, Tang Zheng walked in front of the Dragon King. Although the Dragon King was huge, under Tang Zheng's dragon aura, he seemed very small. This feeling arose in every dragon's heart. Beads of sweat appeared on the Dragon King's forehead and slid down his cheeks. Tang Zheng stretched out his hand and placed it on the dragon horn. The Dragon King's eyes narrowed as pain and despair appeared on its face. Once he damaged the dragon horn, the Dragon King would really fall. His cultivation would plummet, and the honor and glory of the past would be gone. He would be left with nothing. Tang Zheng did not pay attention to the Dragon King's thoughts. He just quietly felt the surging power coming from the dragon horn. In terms of the dragon horn, he definitely could not compare to the Dragon King. However, his advantage lay in the fact that he had fused with the Dragon God fragment. This was something that no cultivator or treasure could compare to, and it could completely suppress all dragons. Dragon King, Tang Jing called out softly. The Dragon King hesitated for a moment. Although he was extremely reluctant, he had no choice but to reply respectfully, "Here. Do you still want to deal with me?" Tang Jing asked calmly. "I don't dare." The Dragon King hurriedly explained. Even if he was given 100 more dragon gallbladders, he would not dare to do this. He was really courting death. If it was not because he was used to being high and mighty, he would not have lifted a rock and smashed his own foot. Tang Jing was very satisfied with his answer, but he did not plan to let him go just like that. He continued to ask, "Do you still want to get those things from me?" The Dragon King swallowed his saliva and said something that was not true. Of course he wanted to, but he really did not dare to think about it. It was completely wishful thinking. "Then will you still stop me?" Tang Jing asked. The Dragon King continued to reply respectfully. "Great." Tang Jing nodded and praised. He suddenly turned around and faced all the dragons. He said majestically, "The dragon race is a proud race. Raise your heads." The dragons were shocked. They gradually raised their heads and faced Tang Jing. Tang Jing had the Dragon King behind him. He seemed small, but his aura was like a rainbow. Facing all the dragons, his aura became stronger and stronger. He said indifferently, "Most of you don't know me. I'm a new member of the dragon race. Perhaps many of you don't understand this, but I still have to say. I was originally a human, but ever since I cultivated the dragon god technique, I became a dragon step by step." As soon as these words were said, all the dragons were so shocked that they were speechless. Tang Jing did not want to say this at first, but after thinking carefully, he decided to be honest. This kind of thing could not be hidden in the future. In order to win the respect and trust of all the dragons, he decided to be completely honest. The Dragon King was also shocked. The Golden Dragon had mentioned this before, but the Dragon King did not care. He did not believe that a human could become a dragon. There were all kinds of strange things in the boundless world. There were carps in the Dragon Gate and pythons that turned into dragons, but there was definitely no human who turned into a dragon. However, the truth was right in front of them, and they had to believe it. Of course, none of the dragons doubted him. After all, there was no need for Tang Jing to lie to them. The whole place was dead silent. Only pairs of eyes stared at him with complicated looks, but they could not say a word for a long time. The Golden Dragon heaved a sigh of relief. If he had told this truth in other situations, it would not have had such an effect. However, he had intimidated all the dragons just now, so his words had such an effect. How? Is that possible? The Dragon King pondered for a long time before he finally spat out this sentence. Tang Jing curled the corner of his mouth into a smile. If a dragon can transform into a human, who can't transform into a dragon? As soon as he asked this question, his heart moved, and a thought spontaneously rose from the bottom of his heart. Why would a dragon transform into a human? After all, they were high and mighty. Would it not be more noble to maintain their dragon forms? Could there be some mystery or inside story? He didn't completely figure out the mystery behind it, but his question was like a stone thrown into the hearts of all dragons, causing ripples in their hearts. Yes, if a dragon can transform into a human, who can't transform into a dragon? This was the thought of an ordinary dragon. However, the Dragon King and the 8 dragon ambassadors had the same thought as Tang Jing. Why do dragons like to transform into humans? Is there a need for that? When did this start? Why have I been doing this unknowingly? They had never thought about this before. They could not help but look at each other, and they could see the shock and horror in each other's eyes. They seemed to have been imperceptibly influenced from the moment they were born. Then they had this fixed mindset. Even the Dragon King was an exception. They seemed to recall, but they realized that there was no trace of it. They did not know who had instilled this thought in them, but it seemed that their ancestors were all like this. Are humans nobler? Is that why dragons are willing to transform into humans? The other races seemed to have this tendency as well. Once their strength reached a certain level, they were willing to transform into humans and try their best to get closer to humans. Are humans the king of all races? Are the other races flocking to transform into humans? To read a novel, please visit Chapter 1607. The speculation that humans were the kings of all races shocked the Dragon King and the Dragon Envoy. Their high and mighty pride seemed to have completely collapsed with a bang. Tang Jing looked at their reaction and guessed their thoughts. The smile on his face became wider. He had finally destroyed the Dragon King's arrogance. On the other hand, the other dragons did not think of this point. That would be able to preserve the momentum of the other dragons. Therefore, he said in a dignified manner, all these years, the Dragon Clan has been hunted down by the Dragon Slayers and had no choice but to hide in the Dragon Realm. This is the shame of the Dragon Clan. This situation is about to change. Ah, change? The dragons were in an uproar. They looked at each other in dismay, unable to hide the shock between them. They had long been tired of this kind of hiding, but they had no choice. In order to survive, they had to do this. Even the Dragon King was helpless. They had almost lost all hope. At this moment, hearing Tang Zheng's words, that almost extinguished hope was ignited little by little. It was like a spark that started a prairie fire in the bottom of their hearts. I know you will be suspicious. You will think that my words have no proof and are not trustworthy. Tang Jing changed the topic and stretched out his palm. With a flash of golden light, a 9-clawed little golden dragon appeared in his palm. It swam around his palm, looking very lifelike. What is this? The dragons widened their eyes. Their reaction was exactly the same as the Dragon King's. Tang Zheng was not in a hurry to answer. He said slowly, countless years ago, the ancestors of the Dragon Clan were also harmed by the Dragon Slayers. However, they never gave up hope. They had been resisting and looking for ways to fight against the Dragon Slayers. In the end, they finally thought of a way. The dragon's interest was piqued. They looked at him eagerly. The Dragon Slayers can sense the Dragon Clan, right? Tang Jing asked. Yes. The dragons nodded. They hated this point. Once the Dragon Clan left the Dragon Realm, no matter how they hid, they would be easily sensed by the Dragon Slayers and be killed. Only the Dragon Realm had natural protection and isolation measures to barely avoid being sensed by the Dragon Slayers. Therefore, the Dragon Clan could only hide here to temporarily save their lives. The ancestors of the dragon race spent countless efforts to give others a taste of their own medicine. They found a way to sense the Dragon Slayers. From now on, we will no longer be blind. Even if the Dragon Slayers chase after us, we will be able to sense them and take the initiative to attack. Tang Zheng said passionately. Actually, when the Dragon Clan senior taught him the sensing technique, he didn't say that. He just wanted him to sense the Dragon Slayers so that he could avoid being hunted down. However, when Tang Zheng saw the plight of the Dragon Clan, the high and mighty Dragon Clan actually hid themselves like rats, not daring to show themselves. This was really an insult to the Dragon Clan. Therefore, he suddenly had an idea and decided to do the opposite. He decided to take the initiative to attack. The best defense was to attack. However, the dragon race had been hunted down by the Dragon Slayers for too many years. Their will to resist was getting weaker and weaker, and they were almost annihilated. They didn't even think of taking the initiative to attack. When they heard him say that, they all revealed an incredulous expression and resentfully shook their heads. They thought that this was a fantasy story and that it was too risky. Tang Jing glanced at the Dragon King from the corner of his eyes. It was incomparably sharp and even had a reproachful expression. The dignified Dragon Clan had actually become a group of cowards under the leadership of the Dragon King. It was simply a disgrace. The Dragon King's heart trembled. He understood Tang Zheng's gaze. Although he was indignant, he didn't dare to refute and forcibly swallowed his anger. Do you plan to hide in the Dragon Realm for the rest of your life and be hunted down by the Dragon Slayers? The Dragon Clan should soar in the 9 heavens. Where are your ambitions? Have you really been scared out of your wits by the Dragon Slayers? Tang Jing asked in disappointment. The drooping dragon heads gradually lifted up. Their eyes were burning with indignation. Tang Zheng's words deeply touched the softest part of their hearts. Their pride still existed, but it was hidden. Now it finally burst out. We are not scared out of our wits. The Dragon Clan straightened their bodies and said with a firm expression. The Dragon King snorted disdainfully. Provocation was just a small trick, but he didn't expect that the Dragon Clan would actually be successfully provoked. These guys. Tang Jing revealed a satisfied expression. If a clan didn't even have the last bit of pride, then there was really no hope. Very good. Since you are not scared out of your wits, then you must be brave enough to attack. Tang Jing said, but our cultivation is not as good as the Dragon Slayers. This is the solution. Tang Jing pointed at the little golden dragon in his hand and said, the divine ability left behind by the Dragon God. The advanced version of the Dragon God technique will solve your worries. Dragon God? Advanced version of the Dragon God technique? The Dragon Clan was confused. It was obviously the first time they had heard of it. A long time ago, the leader of the Dragon Clan was the Dragon God. The Dragon God protected the Dragon Clan and did not allow outsiders to invade, maintaining the pride and nobility of the Dragon Clan. Ever since the last Dragon God fell, there has never been another Dragon God in the Dragon Clan. Many of the Dragon God's divine abilities have also been lost. This is the most fundamental reason why our Dragon Clan has been forced to retreat step by step and be restrained everywhere. Tang Jing passionately said. The Dragon Clan was skeptical and looked at the Dragon King. Even the 8 great dragon envoys looked at the Dragon King. With their status, they actually didn't know about this. Facing the many pairs of questioning eyes, the Dragon King fell silent. He couldn't deny it because what Tang Jing said was the truth. But he was worried in his heart. He was afraid that Tang Jing would tell the Dragon Clan about the origin of the Dragon Slayers. The Dragon Slayers were actually born from the Dragon Clan. There was actually a traitor in the Dragon Clan. This news was undoubtedly a heavy bomb that would shake the Dragon Clan's faith. But he had no way to stop Tang Jing. He moved his lips, but thousands of words were stuck in his throat. Once you cultivate the advanced version of the Dragon God technique, you will be like me and summon the little golden dragon from the dragon seal. This is not an illusion, but a real body. I believe everyone is very clear about what this means. Of course, they were clear about it. The Dragon Clan revealed an excited expression and looked at the little golden dragon with burning eyes. But did they have the qualifications to cultivate it? They looked at the Dragon King one after another. After all, the Dragon Clan was a world where the strong were respected. Many techniques were unique to the Dragon King and were not something that the general public could cultivate. Tang Jing didn't pay attention to the Dragon King's reaction. He also saw the Dragon Clan's worries and said directly, I will now teach everyone the advanced version of the Dragon God technique and the method to sense the Dragon Slayers. As long as you are a member of the Dragon Clan, you will have the opportunity to cultivate it. The Dragon Clan has already reached the point of life and death. If we don't unite, then the Dragon Clan will be destroyed in the future and completely disappear from this world. I believe that everyone is not willing to see this scene. The Dragon Clan was excited and looked at Tang Jing with fervent eyes. The Dragon King sighed inwardly. At this point he had no way to stop it. Otherwise, his position as the Dragon King would be lost. Of course, he also had no way to stop all of this. In the end, Tang Jing did everything he wanted. Tang Jing stretched out his hand and pointed at the void. With a tap, a golden light shot out and exploded. Like the most brilliant fireworks, it turned into specks of golden light that fell from the sky and sprinkled on all the Dragon Clan. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1608. Thousands of rays of golden light descended from the sky like a torrential rain, sprinkling down on the Dragon Clan. Every ray of golden light landed on the forehead of the Dragon Clan. Immediately, the Dragon Clan's entire body bloomed with golden light, and even the Dragon King was no exception. These golden lights contain the advanced version of the Dragon God technique and the Dragon Slayer technique. When the Dragon Clan received this information, they immediately immersed themselves in it and truly experienced the profoundness of it. The Dragon Clan was shocked and realized how extraordinary these two divine abilities were. They could not be bothered to communicate with each other and express their shock. They subconsciously began to cultivate, racing against time. Even the Dragon King was no exception. As if he was deeply afraid of falling behind, he began to cultivate without stopping. Immediately, a strange scene appeared in the sky. Other than Tang Zheng and the Golden Dragon, the other Dragon Clan members were immersed in the world of cultivation. With so many Dragon Clan members cultivating, the dragon might emitted was earth-shattering. Even Tang Zheng could not help but be moved. The Golden Dragon opened his mouth wide and was speechless for a long time. After a long while, he recovered from his shock and looked at Tang Zheng, saying, "Master, this is too shocking. The Dragon Clan will rise from now on, right?" "Of course the Dragon Clan will rise." Tang Zheng nodded and said. The Golden Dragon clenched his fists excitedly and said with pride, "This is great. The Dragon Clan is all thanks to Master. Otherwise, the Dragon Clan's suffering would have continued." Tang Zheng shook his head slightly. "The Dragon Clan's suffering will continue, but the Dragon Clan will not live so cowardly and only think about hiding." The Dragon Slayer technique was powerful, surpassing the current Dragon Clan. Therefore, if they wanted to resist the Dragon Slayer technique, they had to concentrate on cultivating for a period of time. The Golden Dragon also understood that this was not something that could be done overnight, but he still nodded excitedly and said, "I understand. But now that everyone has a goal, I believe it will be achieved soon." The rise of the Dragon Clan was something that many Dragon Clan members dreamed of. They did not expect it to become a reality. Tang Zheng looked at all the Dragon Clan members, and his heart surged. He had hesitated before whether to tell them the origin of the Dragon Slayer technique, but in the end, he avoided talking about it. He was also very clear that this would be a huge blow to the Dragon Clan. Now was the time to boost the Dragon Clan's morale. He could not use this kind of thing to attack them. The Dragon King's worries were completely unwarranted. Streaks of golden light rose into the air from the bodies of many of the Dragon Tribe cultivators before transforming into the same thing above their heads, little golden dragons. There was no lack of geniuses in the Dragon Clan. In the past, they had only been suppressed. Now that they had been stimulated, their potential had completely erupted. On the other hand, the Dragon King's transformation far surpassed the other members of the Dragon Clan. After all, he was the Dragon King, one of the best among the Dragon Clan. His cultivation level was extremely high, so naturally, his comprehension ability was also extremely strong. He had comprehended more things, so his improvement was naturally faster. Therefore, the golden light above his head was constantly changing, and it already had the embryonic form of a little golden dragon. Tang Zheng knew that they would need to cultivate for a long time, so he simply called the golden dragon and descended together, experiencing the local customs of the dragon realm. The dragon domain was extremely large, and it was not something that could be explored in a short period of time. The buildings in the dragon domain were also very grand. After all, the bodies of the Dragon Clan were very large. The golden dragon had been here once. Along the way, he told Tang Zheng everything he knew. Tang Zheng gradually gained a clearer understanding of the dragon territory. Roar! A heaven-shaking dragon roar sounded. Tang Zheng and the golden dragon suddenly stopped and turned their heads to look. They saw a brilliant golden light shining in the direction of the Dragon Clan. The golden light shot straight into the sky and turned into a 9-clawed little golden dragon. The 2 dragon horns on the 9-clawed little golden dragon's head were also blooming with a dazzling golden light. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank and he praised, "So fast." As soon as his voice fell, he had already flown to the edge of the Dragon Clan. He found that the Dragon King was the first to wake up, and his aura had changed greatly. The dragon's might was vast and mighty, and it seemed that his cultivation had improved again. That 9-clawed little golden dragon was summoned by him. The Dragon King roared again, and the 9-clawed little golden dragon flew back into his dragon seal. His eyes turned and locked onto Tang Zheng. The Dragon King's expression was very complicated. He slowly flew towards Tang Zheng and finally stopped in front of him. He hesitated for a moment, but still lowered his noble head and said, "Your choice is right. The entire Dragon Clan should be grateful to you. Then do you still want to deal with me?" The Dragon King no longer said that he didn't dare, but he didn't say anything. It was obvious that Tang Zheng's actions had convinced him, especially the two divine abilities that he taught. The Dragon King benefited a lot and broke through a crucial threshold. The Dragon King hadn't inherited the throne for too long because the old Dragon King had died when dealing with the Dragon Slayers. The new Dragon King was forced to do something beyond his ability. Most of the time, the new Dragon King crossed the river by feeling the stones. Although his cultivation was higher than the other dragons, he didn't reach the realm of the old Dragon King. He had been stuck at a key point. But after cultivating the advanced version of the Dragon God technique, those obstacles collapsed. He finally broke through and reached the 9th stage of the Mahayana realm, 2 levels higher than Tang Zheng's 7th stage of the Mahayana realm. But he still had to bow his head to Tang Zheng and turn hostility into friendship. Other than Tang Zheng's actions that convinced him, he really couldn't resist. Even if his cultivation was higher than Tang Zheng's, the dragon's aura couldn't be compared to the dragon's aura of the Dragon God. The deterrence that went deep into the dragon's soul wasn't something he could resist. Tang Zheng didn't argue. The Dragon King was the Dragon King after all. If he really did anything to him, it would be a heavy blow to the Dragon Clan. So, he said in a deep voice, the Dragon King should think of the Dragon Clan and not rely on the strict hierarchy to consolidate his rule. A just cause enjoys abundant support while an unjust cause finds little support. You have to remember this principle. Yes, I'll remember it. The Dragon King nodded. Tang Zheng glanced at the other dragons and said, let's go back to the Dragon Palace. I still have something to discuss with you. The Dragon King led the way and went straight to the Dragon Palace. When they returned to the Dragon Palace again, the status of both sides had changed slightly. The Dragon King pointed to his Dragon King throne and said respectfully, please sit. Tang Zheng didn't covet his Dragon King throne. He shook his head and said, I'll just sit here. He casually found a seat and sat down. The Dragon King didn't dare to return to his throne. He carefully sat down on a seat next to him and asked humbly, may I ask if you have any other instructions? Tang Zheng said straightforwardly, I'm here to discuss with you how to deal with the Dragon Slayers, especially how to snipe them in Langya Pavilion. The Dragon King nodded and stared at him with a burning gaze. He said, do you have any brilliant ideas? I don't have any brilliant ideas, but I do have a few ideas. First of all, the Dragon Clan still needs to concentrate on cultivating for a period of time. So, it will take time to launch a large-scale counterattack against the Dragon Slayers. That's a plan for the future. Right now, the most important thing is to deal with the Dragon Slayers who may invade Langya Pavilion at any time. We're passively defending. After all, it's not a long-term solution. The Dragon King said worriedly. Tang Zheng had also thought of this point. He said thoughtfully, when you were cultivating just now, I thought of another idea. Hearing this, the Dragon King raised his head curiously and asked, what idea? The Golden Dragon also looked at his master in surprise. He didn't know what kind of brilliant idea he had. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1609. Tang Zheng pondered for a moment and said directly, the Dragon Slayers will definitely invade Langya Pavilion. This is already unavoidable. If we sit and wait for death, we will be too passive. Since that's the case, why don't we do the opposite? The Dragon King's eyes lit up as if he had understood something. He looked at Tang Zheng with a burning gaze. The Dragon Slayers have been hunting the Dragon Clan, then let's also hunt the Dragon Slayers once. As long as we are fully prepared, we can totally do this. Moreover, in Langya Pavilion, the Dragon Slayers' power will be limited to a certain extent and their combat power will be greatly reduced. This will make up for our shortcomings. The Dragon King was suddenly enlightened and said in surprise, you're saying that we should set a trap in Langya Pavilion and invite the Dragon Slayers to walk right into the trap? Tang Zheng looked at him with gratification. As expected of the Dragon King, his comprehension ability was superb and he understood immediately. He asked, do you think it's feasible? Master's idea is certainly feasible. The Golden Dragon blurted out without hesitation. The Dragon King was not in a hurry to answer. Instead, he closed his eyes and thought carefully, as if he was deducing the entire process. After a long time, he opened his eyes and sighed, "It's indeed feasible." After saying that, he looked at Tang Zheng with a complicated gaze. He did not think of this at all. Perhaps he still subconsciously thought that the dragon slayers were undefeatable and tried to avoid them as much as possible. However, Tang Zheng was different. The idea of taking the initiative to attack had been throughout, so he came up with this idea of inviting the dragon slayers to walk right into the trap. Hearing the Dragon King's words, Tang Zheng smiled and said, "If that's the case, then we should discuss the details. We must do it perfectly and not leave a single flaw. Otherwise, if we fail, the Dragon Clan will not be able to bear the consequences." If they really failed, Langya Pavilion would be handed over to the Dragon Slayers. Not only would the Dragon Souls and the Dragon God fragments all fall into the hands of the Dragon Slayers, all the Dragon Clan's reliance would be gone and they would not be able to escape the situation of being hunted down by the Dragon Slayers. Perhaps it would not be long before they completely disappeared from this world. They were deeply aware of this, so the Dragon King's expression became especially serious. He nodded heavily and began to discuss with Tang Zheng. Not long after, a voice came from outside the Dragon Palace. It was the 8 dragon envoys waking up and coming to the Dragon Palace. The Dragon King glanced outside and then looked at Tang Zheng inquiringly. Tang Zheng said, "Call them all in. If we pool our wisdom, we'll be able to think more carefully." The Dragon King was secretly delighted. In this case, Tang Zheng was willing to let bygones be bygones. Rumble. The door of the Dragon Palace slowly opened by itself, and the 8 dragon envoys came in together. The way they looked at Tang Zheng changed again and again, and in the end, they all lowered their heads. Tang Zheng didn't stand up. He just raised his eyes and glanced at them. "Congratulations. Everyone has gained a lot. This is all thanks to the divine ability that you imparted to us. We can't thank you enough." The dragon envoy's previous arrogance was gone as he spoke respectfully. "This is also your own good fortune, and also the shadow of the Dragon Clan's ancestors. There's no need to thank me. No, without you, even with the shadow of the ancestors, we wouldn't know, let alone cultivate the advanced version of the Dragon God technique." The dragon envoy said. Tang Zheng smiled and said, "The Dragon King and I are discussing how to deal with the Dragon Slayers. You all should listen and give us some suggestions." The dragon envoys were shocked. "We're going to fight back against the Dragon Slayers just like that? We tested it just now, but we still can't sense the exact location of the Dragon Slayers." Tang Zheng shook his head and explained, "The method of sensing the Dragon Slayer is because they have arrived in our world, so we can sense it the fastest. Actually, I don't need to say it, but everyone understands the shortcomings of this method. However, it's not like there's no solution. I'm guessing that if everyone works together and gathers everyone's strength, we might be able to sense their location before they arrive in our world, just like how the Dragon Slayers sense us. Then why don't we give it a try?" The dragon envoys were eager to try. After all, they were always in a passive situation. Now that they could experience the initiative, they were very tempted. "There's no rush for now. We're still discussing other countermeasures." Tang Zheng simply told them about the Dragon Slayers invading Langya Pavilion. Immediately, cries of surprise rang out. It was the dragon envoys' first time hearing about this. They all gasped in disbelief. Even Langya Pavilion is no longer safe. "What should we do? That's our last foundation. If we lose it and the entire Langya Pavilion falls into the hands of the enemy, what will we have left?" "Don't panic," Tang Zheng hurriedly advised. "We already have a plan." The dragon envoys raised their heads and listened intently to Tang Zheng's plan. All of them widened their eyes in joy. It turned out that he already had a plan. They all racked their brains to enrich the details. After a while, the traps they set became more and more dangerous, covering all possible scenarios. Tang Zheng's suspended heart gradually calmed down. There were still many capable people in the Dragon Clan, especially the Dragon King and the Dragon Envoys. They lived up to their reputation. This was definitely more reliable and feasible than the plan he came up with alone. Finally, a perfect trap was presented. All of them were excited. They finally experienced the feeling of taking the initiative to attack. It felt so good. To the Dragon Clan, the supernatural powers imparted by Tang Zheng were secondary. The most important thing was that it changed the Dragon Clan's consciousness, making them not as fearful of the Dragon Slayers as before and daring to take the initiative to attack. The Dragon King was well aware of this change. He couldn't help but take a deep look at Tang Zheng. Something that he couldn't do, or perhaps something that he had never even thought of, was achieved in such a short time. Could it be that he was really the Dragon Clan's last hope? Was the situation facing the Dragon Clan really going to change completely because of this? The Dragon King couldn't predict, but this change was good. However, his position as the Dragon King had become very awkward. His authority was being challenged. After this battle, Tang Zheng's authority might surpass that of the Dragon King. In a short time, he had completely surpassed the results of his many years of work. It was truly regrettable. Since you all have cultivated the advanced version of the Dragon God technique, you should know that this supernatural power corresponds to the remaining 9 floors of the Langya Pavilion. Once you reach the corresponding level of cultivation, you can step onto the remaining 9 floors. As for what's above, you'll have to explore it yourselves. Tang Zheng said meaningfully, not hiding anything. Some of the dragon envoys didn't think of this. After hearing this, they were pleasantly surprised. The Dragon King looked at him with a complicated expression and said, "I've already reached the first level of the advanced version. I entered the Langya Pavilion earlier and saw the inverted Langya Pavilion. I also stepped onto the 10th floor, but I couldn't step onto the 11th floor." He couldn't wait to go to the Langya Pavilion as soon as he broke through to verify Tang Zheng's words. Indeed, he was right, but he didn't gain much. After all, the Dragon God fragment on the 10th floor had already been integrated by Tang Zheng. Naturally, he came up empty-handed. Tang Zheng guessed his encounter, his heart moved, and said, "Then what did you gain from the other Langya Pavilion's 10th floor?" Every floor of the upright Langya Pavilion had its own unique features and treasures hidden within. Tang Zheng didn't have time to explore the 10th floor last time, but the Dragon King definitely wouldn't miss this opportunity. Therefore, he was very curious about what the Dragon King had discovered on the 10th floor. Hearing this, the Dragon King's expression became excited. It seemed like he had gained a lot. For the latest novel updates, please visit the website. Chapter 1610. The Dragon King recalled his experience and gains in the Langya Pavilion. His heart, which had been calm for many years, began to surge. He blurted out, "Indeed, I did gain something. Look at what this is." The Dragon King opened his palm and a ball of light bloomed in his palm. It quickly grew bigger and floated up. It was a magic treasure. The most eye-catching thing was that there were 4 extremely simple sacred patterns on it. A divine weapon! The 8 dragon ambassadors exclaimed. It was common knowledge that the Dragon Clan liked to collect treasures. However, a divine weapon was still an extremely rare treasure. Normal Dragon Clan members would not have the opportunity to own one. Some had not even seen one before. The dragon ambassadors were sure that this was a divine weapon that the Dragon King did not have before. It was not inferior to the Dragon Blade. In the battle just now, all the Dragon Clan members had witnessed the power of the Dragon Blade. Although they were defeated, the power of the Dragon Blade was not something that normal Dragon Clan members could withstand. The Dragon King nodded slightly and said, "Yes, this is a divine weapon. I got it from the 10th floor of the Langya Pavilion." Tang Zheng had already guessed it, and thought that it was indeed so. The remaining 9 floors all had supreme treasures, and were completely different from the 9 floors below. There was only one supreme treasure on these floors, and it was first come, first served. Tang Zheng glanced at the sacred patterns on the divine weapon. He was not jealous. After all, compared to the hidden sword, for sacred patterns were too many. Not including the description, it could not be compared to the hidden sword. The 8 dragon ambassadors did not have a treasure like the hidden sword. They were all excited as they stared at the divine weapon. Suddenly, there was a cry of surprise. Could this be the legendary Dragon Shadow? Dragon Shadow! Hearing this, the other dragon ambassadors exclaimed as well. They seemed to be frightened by this name. Tang Zheng did not understand and looked at the divine weapon. He actually saw two simple Xiaozhuan characters on the sacred patterns. They were the words Dragon Shadow. He did not notice it before. It seemed that the dragon ambassadors had sharp eyes and discovered it first. The Dragon Shadow is one of the legendary 9 great divine weapons of the Dragon Clan. I didn't expect it to be hidden in the Langya Pavilion all this while. We've been searching for it for so many years and thought that it was lost. The Dragon Shadow was right under the noses of all the dragon clans. All the dragon clans could reach the Langya Pavilion, but none of the dragon clans thought that the holy relic they had been searching for was upstairs. The Dragon King was quite proud of himself. Although Tang Jing had reached the first level of the advanced version before him, he had no idea why he hadn't gone to the 10th floor of the Langya Pavilion to obtain such a precious treasure. Perhaps this was his opportunity. The dragon envoys were all envious, but no one dared to covet it. The Dragon King glanced at the silent Tang Jing and felt a chill in his heart. Could it be that he also coveted the Dragon Shadow? If he insisted on claiming it as his own, what should he do? Give it to him for free? The Dragon King felt his heart ache, but he did not have the courage to refuse. Immediately, his face turned ashen, and his excitement was swept away. The other dragon tribe cultivators also thought of this, and their expressions changed drastically as they focused their gazes on him. Tang Jing frowned and did not say a word. Suddenly, his eyes lit up and he said, "What about the remaining 8 holy relic of the Dragon Clan?" No one expected Tang Jing to ask this question after pondering for so long. They could not guess his thoughts and answered, "The Dragon Blade is also one of the 9 great holy relic, but we don't know where the remaining 7 holy relic are." Tang Jing had an idea and proposed a hypothesis. "Do you think there are 7 holy relic hidden in the remaining 8 floors of the Langya Pavilion?" The dragon tribe cultivators looked at each other. They did not think of this at that moment. The Dragon King's eyes lit up, and he said firmly, "It's very possible. But there are only 7 holy relic on the remaining 8 floors. What's in the last floor?" No one from the dragon tribe could answer this question. No matter what, after the advanced version of the realm, we will be able to reveal the answer. No matter who ascends to the remaining 8 floors and obtains the treasures within, that will be their opportunity. The Dragon King said as he looked at Tang Jing apprehensively, as if he was afraid that he would refute. Tang Jing nodded slightly. "That's true. There is no lack of geniuses in the Dragon Clan. I believe that there will definitely be dragons who will ascend to the remaining 9 floors and obtain the corresponding treasures. This is indeed their opportunity." Hearing this, all the dragon tribe cultivators breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time, their hearts were surging with excitement. They could not wait to go back to cultivate and ascend to the remaining floors to obtain the holy relic. Tang Jing did not care about the Dragon King and the dragon envoy's thoughts. Instead, he took out the Dragon Blade, which was the spoils of war from the battle just now. The Dragon Blade was very quiet, as if Tang Jing was its master. All eyes were immediately attracted to the Dragon Blade. There were also 4 holy inscriptions on the Dragon Blade, which was exactly the same as the Dragon Shadow. No wonder it could not defeat the hidden mysterious sword. The Dragon King looked at the Dragon Blade anxiously. That was the holy relic that had accompanied him for many years. He did not know if it could return to his hands. Tang Jing had no intention of returning it. Instead, he reached out to the Dragon King and said, "Give me the Dragon Shadow." Everyone was dumbfounded. Didn't he just say that whoever obtained it would have the opportunity? Why did he go back on his word in an instant? The Dragon King's mouth twitched. His heart was bleeding, but he still handed it over with both hands. Tang Jing hooked his finger, and the Dragon Shadow obediently flew into his hand. Whether it was the Dragon Shadow or the Dragon Blade, they seemed to be exceptionally obedient in front of Tang Jing. They restrained their ferocity. The dragon tribe looked at Tang Jing nervously. They did not know what he was going to do with the 2 holy relic. Take it for himself? Then what hope did the other dragon tribes have? But no dragon tribe dared to resist. They were angry but did not dare to say anything. It was the Dragon King's first time experiencing this feeling. What do you think will happen if we combine these 2 sacred artifacts into one? Tang Jing seemed to be deep in thought as he suddenly thought of something and said, Combine two holy relics into one? The Dragon King and the Dragon Envoy were shocked. In their subconscious, being able to obtain one holy relic was already extremely precious. He actually wanted to combine two holy relics into one. This was completely superfluous. It was a reckless waste of God's gifts. The dragon tribe was good at collecting treasures, but they were not good at refining. Also, no dragon tribe had deep attainments in refining weapons. Naturally, they would not have such thoughts. But Tang Zheng was different. He had obtained Immerse's true teachings and refined the hidden mysterious sword. With experience, he dared to do what he wanted. This is not necessary. The Dragon King twitched his mouth and said painfully. Unexpectedly, Tang Zheng shook his head and said, I think it is very necessary. Although these two holy relics are powerful, their power is limited. There is still a lot of room for improvement. In the future, when fighting against the dragon slayers, a powerful enough holy relic can unleash great power. Since there is such an opportunity, we naturally cannot miss it. He made the final decision. Although the other dragon tribes felt that it was superfluous, none of them dared to object. Tang Zheng looked at everyone with satisfaction and said eagerly, Since everyone has doubts, then I will prove it to everyone. Sometimes, two holy relic is not as powerful as one. After saying that, he turned his head and looked at the golden dragon in the clouds and said, You protect me. I will combine the Dragon Shadow and Dragon Blade. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1611. Hearing Tang Zheng's arrangement, the other dragons were surprised. Dragons were not good at refining, this was a well-known fact. Could it be that he was an exception? The golden dragon hurriedly stood in front of Tang Zheng to protect him, but in front of the Dragon King and the Dragon Envoy, his so-called protection was useless. If the Dragon King and the Dragon Envoy had evil intentions, the golden dragon would definitely not be able to defend himself. But obviously, they did not have such intentions. They only curiously looked at Tang Zheng, half believing and half doubting how he would refine. With a wave of his hand, the 9 revolving pill furnace appeared in front of him. Its whole body emitted a mysterious light, and the lifelike carvings on the walls of the furnace were about to come out. The 9 revolving pill furnace was a sacred artifact, but its artifact spirit was hidden in the lifelike spirits. Tang Zheng flicked his finger, and the Dragon Blade and Dragon Shadow turned into 2 streams of light, whizzing into the 9 revolving pill furnace. Several pairs of eyes stared at it without blinking, especially when they saw the 9 revolving pill furnace. They could not help but shiver. Everyone was knowledgeable and could tell at a glance that it was a sacred artifact. This kind of refining sacred artifact was even rarer than offensive sacred artifacts. After the Dragon Blade and the Dragon Shadow entered the pill furnace, the light became brighter, as if it wanted to soar into the sky and break through the restrictions of the pill furnace. However, the spirits on the walls of the pill furnace flew up and interweaved at the mouth of the pill furnace, firmly blocking the light from spreading out. The 9 revolving pill furnace seemed to know that these 2 sacred artifacts were not ordinary items. Even the slightest bit of their power could not be underestimated, so it did not let the slightest bit of energy escape. The Dragon Blade and Dragon Shadow seemed to feel the threat and tried to escape. After all, they were not Tang Zheng's magical artifacts. In a real life and death situation, they would not listen to his control. The Dragon King and Dragon Blade had a telepathic connection. Their hearts shivered and their eyelids twitched as they looked at the 9 revolving pill furnace with worry. But after seeing Tang Zheng's resolute eyes, they swallowed their words. Since things had already reached this point, they could only believe in Tang Zheng and pray that he would succeed. If he failed, these 2 sacred artifacts would be destroyed. Thinking of this, the Dragon King and the Dragon Envoy felt their hearts ache. Those were 2 sacred artifacts, not ordinary weapons or magic treasures. They were so useful that even the Dragon Clan would not underestimate them. You want to escape? Now that you've entered the 9 revolving pill furnace, you should just stay put. Tang Zheng let out a shout as a heaven flame burst out from his fingertip and flew into the cauldron. The heavenly fire was an existence that surpassed the true fire. It was a sacred item for refining weapons. Moreover, he was the only one in the world who possessed the heavenly fire. As the heavenly fire approached, Dragon Blade and Dragon Shadow felt an even greater threat. They flew up and tried to break free from the restraints of the pill furnace. "Where do you think you're going?" Tang Zheng's thought moved, and the heavenly flame caught up with the two sacred tools. The flame rose with a rumbling sound and wrapped around them. The Dragon Blade and Dragon Shadow struggled even more fiercely, but it was all in vain. The heavenly fire was not something they could resist. A moment later, the Dragon Blade and the Dragon Shadow gradually quieted down, as if they had given up resistance and turned into the purest energy. The Dragon King's expression changed abruptly, and his heart skipped a beat. This was because his connection with the Dragon Blade had been forcibly severed. He stared blankly at the 9 revolving pill furnace. He really wanted to rush over and pull the Dragon Blade out. Because, once this connection was severed, he would no longer be the Dragon Blade's owner. Someone else would be safe, and he could become its new owner. If not for all this happening right under his nose, and Tang Zheng personally taking action, he would have already impatiently tried to stop it. It was not an easy task for an ordinary magical weapon to remove its owner's imprint. Especially for sacred tools, to remove the imprint was harder than ascending to the heavens. But under the pincer attack of the 9 revolving pill furnace and the heavenly fire, it was as easy as blowing dust off a canal. Tang Zheng did not care about the Dragon King's nervous thoughts. He was concentrating on watching every movement within the pill furnace. After the 2 sacred tools turned into the purest energy, the 9 revolving pill furnace started to revolve rapidly. The heavenly fire turned into strands, and refined every strand of pure energy. After being tempered thousands of times, the impurities within the energy were completely removed. The remaining energy blossomed with a dazzling light, like 2 small suns. Under the pincer attack of the heavenly fire, the 2 completely different strands of energy gradually approached each other and fused together. From the initial rejection to the fusion, there were not many twists and turns. Instead, there was a natural and smooth flow of beauty. After the 2 strands of energy fused, Tang Zheng was delighted. It was as he had deduced. After the 2 sacred tools fused together, the energy released was even more majestic. What? A ball of light blossomed from the pill furnace. Although it could not escape, it jumped into the vision of the other dragons. At this time, they were all shocked and overjoyed. They were very clear on what this meant. The first step was a success. It really was a success. It seems refining is not as difficult as I thought. The Dragon King was overwhelmed with emotions as he muttered to himself. He had never thought of refining and subconsciously thought that it would not be easy. Now, it seemed that his opinion was completely wrong. The Golden Dragon, on the other hand, had witnessed the hardships that Tang Zheng had gone through along the way and added, "Everyone, my master's refining skills are indeed formidable, but he did not succeed overnight. He only managed to achieve what he has today after going through so many hardships." The other dragons suddenly understood and felt admiration in their hearts. They only saw the scenery on the surface and did not see the sweat on the back. Change. Suddenly, Tang Zheng shouted loudly. The fused energy began to change and gradually condensed into the shape of a sharp blade. It was almost the same as the dragon blade from before. As time passed, Tang Zheng's expression also changed. From the initial serious expression, it gradually became relaxed. The sky outside gradually turned dark and then bright again. Unknowingly, many dragons had gathered outside. These were all dragons who had awakened after cultivating divine abilities. They all gathered in the Dragon Palace. They knew that the benefactor who had bestowed them with everything was in the Dragon Palace. Many pairs of eyes looked at the Dragon Palace with expectation. Rise. Suddenly, Tang Zheng let out a roar, his face flushed red. The Dragon King and the Dragon Envoy's hearts skipped a beat. They widened their eyes and stared at the 9 revolving pill furnace. The cauldron had already stopped rotating, and the light had also retracted. Even the interior of the cauldron had become extremely quiet. There was not even a trace of light, and it had sunk into complete darkness. Everyone stretched their necks, trying to see the scene inside the furnace. Suddenly, a brilliant light burst out like a sun rising in the night. It was incomparably dazzling. This light slowly rose and floated above the furnace, attracting everyone's attention. The result of the combination of the dragon blade and the dragon shadow. From now on, it will be called the Dragon Shadow Blade. Tang Jing named it Dragon Shadow Blade. Everyone's heart trembled as they remembered this name. However, they were soon attracted by another scene. They saw that the Dragon Shadow Blade had 3 saint runes running through it. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1612. The 3 sacred inscriptions ran through the Dragon Shadow Blade. The lines were simple and elegant, which was particularly eye-catching. The Dragon King's breathing quickened. The Dragon Shadow Blade seemed to have a suction force that drew him closer. Tang Zheng admired the Dragon Shadow Blade for a while, thinking that he was getting better at refining weapons. He looked at everyone's reaction, especially the Dragon King's, and flipped his finger. Whoosh whoosh. The Dragon Shadow Blade flipped around his fingertips a few times, creating a long series of afterimages that exuded a terrifying power. When the Dragon King saw this, he subconsciously stopped in his tracks. At this moment, that was no longer his magical weapon. His mark had been erased. He stared at the Dragon Shadow Blade longingly, feeling uneasy. He was afraid that he would not have a share of such a powerful magical weapon. He sighed faintly, feeling extremely regretful. If he had not failed to recognize Tang Zheng and clashed with him, perhaps things would not have turned out this way. Tang Zheng did not care about the Dragon King's complicated thoughts. He only looked at his eyes and flicked his finger. The Dragon Shadow Blade flew out and headed straight for the Dragon King. A terrifying aura that could topple mountains and overturn seas swept towards the Dragon King like a tornado. The Dragon Envoy was so frightened that he almost screamed. The Dragon King's expression also changed abruptly. His body tensed up, and his heart felt like it was about to break. Suddenly, the Dragon Shadow Blade stopped abruptly in front of the Dragon King's forehead. It was so close that it seemed like it would pierce through his head in the next second. The Dragon King's heart hung in midair. His 2 pairs of big eyes became cross-eyed as he stared at the Dragon Shadow Blade in front of his forehead. Both the Dragon Shadow Blade and the Dragon Shadow Blade were obtained by you. That is your opportunity. Although I have refined them, they are still yours when I return them to their rightful owners, Tang Zheng said lightly. However, these words were earth-shattering. It set off waves of shock in the Dragon King and the Dragon Envoy's hearts. This was equivalent to setting the tone. From now on, the remaining 7 sacred weapons in the Langya Pavilion would belong to whoever obtained them first. Tang Zheng would not deliberately snatch them or interfere. Everyone was well aware of what this meant. They couldn't wait to explore the rest of the floors. However, the strongest among them had only broken through to the first level of the advanced version. They did not have the qualifications to set foot on the remaining floors. They could only look at the sacred artifact and sigh. The Dragon King looked at the Dragon Shadow Blade in disbelief. The other party had actually given up such a powerful sacred weapon. As the person involved, his feelings were complicated and indescribable. Finally, the thousands of words turned into a single sentence, "Thank you." After he finished speaking, he respectfully bowed to Tang Zheng and almost knelt down. Obviously, he was sincerely convinced. He asked himself honestly, he wasn't able to be so open and aboveboard, and he would probably take it for himself first. When he thought up to here, he felt even more ashamed and wished for nothing more than to find a hole to hide in, and he was extremely regretful of his rash conflict from before. Tang Jing nodded slightly, accepting his gratitude. He had painstakingly helped him refine artifacts, so he deserved this, thank you. Tang Zheng's image instantly grew. This was not something that could be said in a few words, but was proven through his actions. It was more convincing. At least, other than the Dragon King, the other 8 dragon ambassadors were completely convinced and no longer had any thoughts of disrespect. The Golden Dragon saw the clues from their reactions and couldn't help but feel happy for its master and feel honored. The Dragon King did not kneel. After all, he was the king of a race, so how could he kneel so easily? He maintained his last bit of pride and said, The entire dragon race will remember you and thank you. Tang Zheng smiled faintly. Although I'm a halfway dragon, I'm still a member of the dragon race. I'm deeply blessed by the dragon race. The rise and fall of the dragon race has a lot to do with me. Immediately, the previous conflict disappeared and the last bit of grudge in their hearts was removed. Even Tang Zheng was so magnanimous, so how could the Dragon King and the Dragon Ambassadors not let go? Quickly drip your blood to bind it, Tang Zheng reminded. The Dragon King suddenly understood and nodded excitedly. He activated his technique and pointed at the Dragon Shadow Blade. A drop of blood seeped out from his fingertip and dripped onto the Dragon Shadow Blade. The Dragon Shadow Blade immediately released a ball of red light. In the next second, the red light suddenly retracted inwards. In an instant, all of the light was retracted, leaving only the surface of the Dragon Shadow Blade shining with a mysterious and powerful aura. Tang Zheng looked at the Dragon Shadow Blade with gratification and said, "You can absorb the Dragon Shadow Blade into your body and become one with it." "Can I really do that?" The Dragon King was shocked. He had heard of this before, but the Dragon Shadow Blade could not reach this point. Naturally, he had never experienced it before. "You'll know once you try." Tang Zheng looked at the 3 saint patterns and said with interest. The Dragon King quickly summoned the Dragon Shadow Blade. With a whoosh, the Dragon Shadow Blade disappeared. The Dragon King's eyes shone with a shocking light as he sighed. As expected, the Dragon Shadow Blade had already become one with him. The 8 dragon envoys looked at this scene and revealed looks of envy. Their hearts surged and they could not wait to obtain the remaining saint weapons. The Dragon King looked outside the Dragon Palace and sensed that all the dragons had gathered here. He had an idea and said, "Everyone, let's go out together. I have something to announce." Outside the Dragon Palace, the dragons were densely packed and gathered. When they saw the Dragon King and Tang Zheng come out, all of their eyes focused on Tang Zheng. Instead, the Dragon King became a supporting character. The Dragon King's heart had already calmed down and did not mind. Instead, he soared into the sky and floated high up in the air. He looked down at the dragons and said loudly, "The dragon race has declined for many years, but the heavens have not given up on the dragon race. The heavens have sent an envoy to us. The envoy has already given everyone a welcome gift. I believe that everyone will benefit greatly." The dragons discussed animatedly and looked at Tang Zheng with gratitude. The benefits this time were real and even priceless. Tang Zheng calmly accepted the gazes from all directions and looked at the Dragon King thoughtfully. He did not know what the Dragon King wanted to do. The Dragon King continued, "The dragon race has a total of 9 dragon envoys. However, one of them met with misfortune and was killed by the Dragon Slayer. However, the heavens have sent us a new dragon envoy." A new dragon envoy. All of the gazes fell on Tang Zheng. There was no jealousy and they all felt that the title was deserved. "This envoy is our new dragon envoy. He is not a normal dragon envoy, but a dragon god envoy. He is not inferior to me. From today onwards, the words of the dragon god envoy will be the holy words of the dragon race." The Dragon King said passionately. At that moment, all the dragons were stunned and dumbfounded. Everyone thought that the Dragon King would reward Tang Zheng, but they never thought that the Dragon King would give him the title of Dragon God Envoy and raise his status to such an extent. Chapter 1613. Dragon God Envoy. Tang Zheng was stunned. He did not expect the Dragon King to bestow him such a title, and it was obviously different from the other 8 dragon envoys, specifically stating that he was not inferior to the Dragon King. This already raised his status to a very high level. Heavenly voice novel hearing the earth-shattering cheers of the Dragon God Envoy, even the 8 dragon envoys beside him shouted. Tang Zheng's emotions were also stirred up, setting off great waves. He became the center of attention, the center of the entire dragon race. The Dragon King looked at him with a smile, raised his hands and said, "Let's invite the Dragon God Envoy up to speak." Tang Zheng did not decline. Wasn't this what he wanted? He wanted to expand his influence and speaking rights in the dragon race. The title of Dragon God Envoy perfectly solved this problem. He slowly rose into the sky. Without releasing the dragon god's dragon aura, Just his own dragon aura was already terrifyingly powerful. Many dragons bowed respectfully and looked at Ji Hao with more and more passionate eyes. Tang Zheng looked down at the dragon race, densely packed and extending to the end of the horizon. His heart was filled with pride. He said heroically, "The dragon race is a noble race. In the past, in the present, and in the future, the humiliation of the past has become history. From this moment on, the dragon race will stand up." He deliberately took a step forward. Rising higher, his voice was loud and clear, clearly transmitted into the ears of every dragon, deafening the deaf. Although it was only a few words, it seemed to have great magic. A wave of emotion spread throughout the dragon race. The Dragon King also could not help but light up, shining brightly. The dragon race has stood up. The Dragon King was the first to roar. The other dragons also echoed, loudly echoing. The dragon race has stood up. The dragon race has stood up. Deafening shouts resounded through the clouds, shaking the dragon region. This was the voice of the dragon race. At this moment, it finally burst out, like a stone stirring up 1,000 ripples. The Dragon King looked at this scene with a myriad of emotions. He did not know how many years it had been since he saw the dragon race with such a high morale and unity. He took a deep look at Tang Zheng and thought to himself that perhaps he really was an emissary sent by the heavens. No, an emissary sent by the dragon god. The matter of the dragon clan had come to an end. He had already discussed a plan with the Dragon King. As for the trap in the Langya Pavilion, it had already been set. They were only waiting for the dragon slayers to step into the Langya Pavilion. Then the trap would be triggered automatically. At that time, they would let the dragon slayers experience the feeling of being hunted down. Hearing that Tang Zheng was going to leave, the Dragon King and the 8 dragon envoys were shocked and tried to persuade him to stay. The Dragon God envoy had become the new core figure of the Dragon Clan, equivalent to the symbol of the Dragon Clan. If he were to leave, it would inevitably disappoint the other members of the Dragon Clan. However, Tang Zheng had no choice but to leave. He still had too many things waiting for him to do, but the Dragon King and the Dragon Envoy were so kind that he couldn't refuse. He was in a dilemma. Suddenly, his eyes fell on the golden dragon. He had an idea and said, "You're worried that I won't return. Let the golden dragon stay here. If anything happens, he can find me." "Master, I want to stay by your side and serve you." The golden dragon was anxious when he heard this. He quickly expressed his opinion and was reluctant to leave. Tang Zheng smiled and said, "The dragon field is your home. Your clansmen are here. It's better for you to stay here than to follow me everywhere. In addition, you have to work hard to cultivate the advanced version of the Dragon God technique. Who knows, the divine instruments in one of the remaining floors of the Langya Pavilion might be yours." The golden dragon was silent. From Tang Zheng's eyes and words, he could feel his master's earnest hope. He pondered for a while and finally nodded. "All right, I'll stay in the dragon field. Please rest assured, master. I'll definitely cultivate wholeheartedly and won't embarrass you." Seeing that Tang Zheng had made up his mind, the Dragon King and the Dragon Envoy could only compromise and accept this arrangement. At the same time, their gazes towards the golden dragon changed again and again. There was no doubt that the golden dragon's status in the Dragon Clan would rise along with Tang Zheng. Before leaving the dragon field, Tang Zheng took another look. He thought to himself that if he moved the dragon field into the heaven realm, perhaps the dragon slayers wouldn't be able to find them. Naturally, the dragon clan would be safe. However, when other creatures entered the heaven realm, they could only be turned into pure energy. Other than the dragon cave, which had entered the heaven realm and maintained a part of its original state, it was an exception. Perhaps, this will happen in the future. Once they reach the heaven realm, the lightning in the dragon cave can temper them and make them stronger. He shook his head and temporarily abandoned this thought. At least he couldn't do it now. He looked back at the golden dragon, the Dragon King, and the other dragons. With a wave of his hand, he opened the spatial door and strode in. It was a sunny day in the human world. When Tang Zheng walked out of the spatial door, he saw the blue sky and white clouds. He felt relaxed and happy. After the transformation of the Tree of Life, the air in the human world had become very fresh. All the pollution had been removed, and the spiritual chi of heaven and earth had reached a peak. The cultivation speed of all the cultivators in the world would soar and walk on the fast track. At this moment, it was almost the spring festival. The atmosphere in the land of Hua Xia was lively. Every family welcomed the spring festival. When he landed in the capital, he felt that this grand city was much more deserted. Many outsiders had already returned home. His classmates had already returned home. In the past half a year, he had almost never gone to school. There were too many things to do, so he couldn't split himself. It's the spring festival. I'll rest at home for a while and accompany grandfather and the others. He had been running around all day and didn't know when it would end. He was reminded of the scenery and had this idea. When he walked to the door, he couldn't help but think of two people, his parents. Ever since they left quietly, there had been no news of them. It was as if the human world had evaporated. He had also thought of asking the Li Palace to search for their traces. However, Li Xiaotian spent a lot of effort and found nothing. Tang Zheng also gave up. Since they didn't want him to find them, they naturally had a way to avoid him. It was useless to search for them. When they saw Tang Zheng come back alone, the others were curious. This time, he and the golden dragon quietly left. The others didn't know where he went. At first, in order to prevent everyone from worrying, he deliberately avoided talking about it. This time, he returned safe and sound, so he naturally told them everything. Everyone was excited. To them, dragons were naturally incomparably mysterious. Tang Zheng was lucky enough to go to the dragon domain and see so many legendary dragons. He was even titled as the Dragon God Envoy. Immediately, everyone was overjoyed and felt honored. It's close to the spring festival. I won't leave for the time being. I'll stay at home to accompany everyone for the spring festival. After Tang Zheng finished speaking, the house rang out with cheers. In the past year, everyone had been apart more than together. Although they didn't say anything, they knew that it was because they had no choice. But since they had the opportunity to gather together, they were naturally very happy. Tang Dehai made the final decision and said with joy, "In the past, we didn't have the atmosphere for the spring festival. This year, there are so many people. We must have a lively spring festival." Although Tang Dehai's appearance had changed very little, his spirit was no longer like an old man. He was full of energy. "Okay, we'll have a lively spring festival." Tang Zheng nodded and said, "If your parents were here, this spring festival would be even more interesting." Tang Dehai said with emotion. Chapter 16:14. It was the 12th month of winter in the capital city, covered in white snow. However, in another place, it was spring all year round. Flowers, birds, and grass were everywhere. It was truly a paradise. A heavenly novel. In this paradise, there was a small wooden building. Two people directly walked out of the wooden building. Their feet were like the wind as they walked through the air. They strolled leisurely like this and arrived at a lake as if they were walking on flat ground. Chua shua. Sword chi was like a rainbow. Two streaks of sword chi shot out from their fingertips. There was no sword in their hands, but there was a sword in their hearts. Therefore, when their fingers drew in the air, sword chi gushed out as if it was cutting through the sky. The two people rushed into the sky and the formless sword chi clashed in the air. There was no wind, but the surface of the lake surged with waves. With a loud rumble, a wave of water rushed into the sky. The sword chi condensed and gradually emitted a bit of light. Their sword chi condensed into a physical body. If a martial artist saw this scene, they would definitely be shocked. They would not be able to guess what realm the two people's martial arts had reached and what kind of martial arts they cultivated to have such power. The two people looked at each other and shouted in tacit understanding. They quickly attacked each other. With the light sword in hand, the wind and clouds changed color. Rumble, rumble, rumble. More water pillars exploded on the surface of the lake. The momentum was great. The two people continued to fight like this until the sun set in the west. In such a high-intensity battle, the two people were not out of breath and their faces were not red. It could be seen how long their chi and skills were. They flew down from the sky and walked on the green grass beside the lake. They were like a couple who only envied mandarin ducks and not immortals. The woman nestled in the man's arms and looked into the distance. She looked past the mountains as if she wanted to see through the layers of obstacles and reach the place thousands of miles away. Junshan, how do you think our son is? He is very strong and has so many people assisting him. He will be fine. His cultivation has probably increased by a lot. I am not worried about his cultivation. It's just that he is so young and has already faced so many dangerous things. It is far more difficult than when we were young. It really is hard on him. The heavens have given him a great responsibility. It turned out that these two people were the parents Tang Jing had been searching for, Wu Junshan and Lan Yu. It's almost the new year. I really miss my son. I don't know if he misses us. Lan Yu said with a sad expression. It's all my fault. I didn't protect him well back then, and that's why our relationship has become so distant. It's been hard on you and your son all these years. Wu Junshan gently stroked his beloved wife's hair. He was deeply moved and blamed himself. Lan Yu shook her head and said, I misunderstood you in the past. Now that I think about it, you have done enough. It's a pity that we were too weak back then. If we had continued to stay here, perhaps none of this would have happened. Lan Yu looked around, his gaze sweeping past every blade of grass and every tree. He was extremely regretful. We grew up in the martial organization and were loyal to them. Who would have thought that such a thing would happen? If it wasn't for the birth of our son, I'm afraid we wouldn't have been able to see the true face of the martial organization. Wu Junshan said in a heavy tone. Speaking of our son, I was conceived here in the past. Lan Yu's eyes flashed with a trace of shyness as she spoke tenderly. Wu Junshan seemed to have sunk into his memories. An indistinct smile appeared on his face. That's right. In the blink of an eye, so many years have passed. We survived a great calamity and even conceived a son here. This is a gift from the heavens to us. Junshan, how do you think our son is a celestial with the 9 yang saint body? I've never been able to figure this out, said Lan Yu faintly. This question had perplexed him for many years, but he had never been able to find an answer. Wu Junshan was silent. He had clearly also considered this question. After muttering to himself for a long time, he said uncertainly, Our son was conceived here. Do you think it has something to do with this place? It has something to do with this place? Lan Yu was horrified. It was as if the clouds had parted to reveal the blue sky. His eyes gradually lit up as he looked around. Could it really be like this? The husband and wife were both very clear that this place was too mysterious. There were many unsolved mysteries here. Otherwise, they wouldn't have traveled so far and spent so much effort to find this place and return to their homeland. They wanted to increase their strength as quickly as possible, and the only method was this place. Speaking of this place, it had to be traced back to 20 years ago. At that time, during a confrontation with an enemy, the two of them accidentally entered this place and were trapped for several months. This place wasn't small. They had practically walked through it, but they still hadn't found an exit. In the end, they had discovered a wordless wall. This wordless wall's name wasn't given by them. Instead, the word wordless was carved into the wall. Thus, it was named the wordless wall. Every time there was a full moon, 2 figures would appear on the wordless wall. At the beginning, they didn't understand what was going on. Afterwards, they gradually found some clues. These 2 figures were actually practicing the sword. The 2 swords combined together was extremely powerful. But at that time, they had wholeheartedly supported Chief Wu. They believed that there was no martial arts that could compare to a martial ancestor, so they didn't investigate any further. Afterwards, by chance, they finally left this place a few months later. They never thought of returning. Afterwards, as their martial arts grew deeper and deeper, they began to recall the details. Only then did they realize that the sword techniques on the wordless wall were even more profound than the martial arts they cultivated. But for a long period of time, the relationship between the two of them wasn't good. Thus, they didn't have the heart to revisit this place. But ever since they recognized their son, they realized that their son's realm had left them far behind. They couldn't help it all. Only then did they recall this wordless wall again. Thus, the two of them went through untold hardships and finally found this place with great difficulty. The two of them concentrated on comprehending the profound principles of the wordless wall. Finally, they had a harvest. They comprehended a set of profound sword techniques. This was a set of sword techniques that two people practiced together. If one practiced it alone, it would be easy for one to suffer from chi deviation. During this period of time, their martial arts had advanced by leaps and bounds. They were different every day. It really gave them a taste of an unprecedented harvest. However, they hadn't completely mastered this set of sword techniques. They had a premonition that once they mastered this set of sword techniques, it would be the day they would leave this place and truly recognize their son. At that time, they could stay by their son's side and make up for their dereliction of duty. They could shelter their son from the wind and rain. Our son's birthday is in the 2nd month. We must master this sword technique before then and then return. Tian Chanzi once said that on his 20th birthday, his pure yang energy will completely explode. If he doesn't pass this hurdle, then his life will be in danger. Lan Yu worriedly said. Wu Junshan held her shoulder and comforted her. What kind of person is our son? Pure yang energy won't take his life. Moreover, doesn't he have so many girls by his side? You don't need to worry. AI, our son is like this. How can I, as a mother, not worry? Then we must seize this opportunity to practice the sword. We must strive to master it as soon as possible so that we can return as soon as possible to shelter our son from the wind and rain. Wu Junshan firmly said. Lan Yu glanced at her husband and nodded heavily. Tang Jing didn't know that his birthday was in the 2nd month. He always thought that the birthday his grandfather told him was his birth date, which was in the 3rd month. Chapter 16:15. The night was very dark, and the silver moonlight sprinkled down. It was the 15th day of the 12th lunar month. The moonlight once again sprinkled on the wordless wall, and two figures immediately appeared on the wall. They were very clear and lifelike, not much different from real people. Heavenly Voice Novel 2. These two figures held long swords in their hands. Their bodies were graceful, and their swords were like swimming dragons as they danced, dazzling the eyes. Wu Junshan and Lan Yu opened their eyes wide as they stared at this scene, hoping to comprehend more sword moves from it. Their bodies did not move, but their hearts were already moved. As the figures moved, traces of understanding spontaneously rose from the bottom of their hearts. Suddenly, the two people's eyes widened as they stared fixedly at the wordless wall. Their faces revealed shock. They had never seen such a scene before. There was actually another figure on the wordless wall. A third figure. What was going on? They had already seen the wordless wall several times, but without exception, there were only two figures. There was never a third figure. They were not so blind that they could not even see this. So, what was going on with this third figure that had just appeared? The two looked at each other in dismay, unable to hide the complicated look in their eyes. Lan Yu moved his throat and carefully asked, "What is going on?" Wu Junshan shook his head. He was experienced and knowledgeable, but he could not understand what was going on. He muttered to himself for a moment and said, "Let's take a look for now." Just as his voice fell, the wordless wall began to change. The third figure gradually became clear, as if it was really going to become a person and rush out from the wordless wall. The two were so frightened that they subconsciously retreated. Their nerves immediately tensed up as they were on full alert, staring unblinkingly at the wordless wall. Gradually, the figure became completely clear, and even its facial features became much more detailed. It was really no different from a real person. The two were shocked because they could see a trace of familiarity from the facial features. It was as if they had seen it somewhere before. "Who is it? It seems like we know each other." The two looked at each other. There was no need for a single word as they understood each other's thoughts. "What should we do?" Lan Yu asked. They did not know whether this change was good or bad, and the two were somewhat undecided. Before the two of them could make a decision, the third figure made a qualitative leap. It had completely turned into the image of a person. Its facial features were vivid and lifelike. The two of them sucked in a breath of cold air and exclaimed at the same time, "Enchanting!" Yes, this figure was actually Enchanting. A gust of wind blew past, ruffling the branches around them. This gust of wind was extremely fierce. The two of them subconsciously closed their eyes, and then suddenly opened them again. They were shocked to find that there was no third figure on the wordless wall. Where did it go? Are you looking for me? A voice came from behind them, startling them. They turned around abruptly and saw a living person standing in front of them. Enchanting! The two of them cried out in surprise again. Their expressions were extremely rich. No matter how they thought about it, they couldn't understand how Enchanting could fly out from the wordless wall. How did she do all this? Enchanting looked at the two of them with an indifferent expression. She was not surprised, but in fact, there was a trace of surprise in the depths of her eyes. She seemed to be very surprised to see Tang Zheng's parents here. Speaking of which, she had also experienced a lot of ups and downs during this period of time. Ever since she was defeated in the capital, her mood had suffered a heavy blow. She had always boasted that she was the successor of the Heavenly Tao, and even the spokesperson of the Heavenly Tao. However, she could not understand how she had been defeated by Tang Zheng. She had the help of the Heavenly Tao. Could it be that she was still not a match for Tang Zheng? Or was this the original intention of the Heavenly Tao to test her? She could not figure it out. She thought bitterly for a long time until one day, it suddenly became clear. This was because the voice of the Heavenly Tao had taken the initiative to call her and answered her doubts. She believed that she would not forget until she died. What the Heavenly Tao had told her made her feel enlightened. She was wild with joy, and she felt a heavy burden on her body. The Heavenly Tao had told her that the Heavenly Tao was at its most dangerous time. It was threatened and not just challenged. The Heavenly Tao spoke with certainty. At first, Enchanting felt that it was nonsense and exaggeration. However, gradually, as the Heavenly Tao explained in depth, she began to believe it. Under the heavens, there was actually something that could threaten the Heavenly Tao. This was really eye-popping news. However, even the Heavenly Tao did not know what was threatening it, so it needed the help of others. Enchanting was the candidate chosen by the Heavenly Tao. Seeing that her mind was wavering, even the Heavenly Tao had no choice but to come out and explain. It stabilized her mind and ensured that the Heavenly Tao's plan was flawless. Enchanting's mind was indeed stabilized. She also understood the great responsibility that she was shouldering. She also knew what she should do next. The Heavenly Tao had already arranged everything. She only needed to take action, although she did not understand the mystery of these actions. She also obeyed the Heavenly Tao's arrangement, so she came here in a daze. She actually passed through a transmission array from a mysterious place, and then appeared on the wordless wall. When she came out of the wordless wall, she was very surprised, especially when she saw Wu Junshan and Lan Yu. She naturally knew the identity of these two people and knew that they had left Tang Zheng. However, no matter what, Enchanting did not expect that she would actually see them here. What was the Heavenly Tao's purpose in bringing her here? Could it be that it was to see them? She looked around and did not see anyone else. She could not help but believe her own judgment. Perhaps the Heavenly Tao really wanted her to see them. Perhaps it wanted to catch them and then make Tang Zheng obediently submit. Thinking of this, her face gradually became gloomy. Her gaze was as sharp as a knife as she stared at the two people. However, she was slightly puzzled in her heart. Why did her connection with the Heavenly Tao become weaker after she came here? It seemed that something had blocked her connection with the Heavenly Tao. This was unprecedented. She could not help but frown. Both sides' gazes met and stared at each other. Enchanting did not ask why the two people were here, but Lan Yu could not help but ask, Enchanting, why are you here? And you came in from the wordless wall? Originally, Wu Junshan and Lan Yu were trapped here. They spent several months and left this place from other places, not from the wordless wall. Since they could come in from the wordless wall, then could they also leave from the wordless wall? But how could they touch all of this? They could not figure it out. Enchanting curiously muttered to herself, the wordless wall? Chapter 16:16. Wu Junshan and Lan Yu also discovered that the two figures had disappeared. They were both shocked and cried out in alarm, how did they disappear? In the past, the figures on the wall would only disappear when the sky gradually brightened, but this time they actually disappeared so early. Heavenly Voice Novel I, was it definitely related to Enchanting? The two of them widened their eyes and stared straight at Enchanting, saying, "What did you do?" Enchanting looked at the two blankly. "I didn't do anything. You two were hiding here, no wonder you could disappear without a trace. From now on, you won't be able to hide anymore. What do you want to do?" Wu Junshan's expression was guarded as he stood in front of his wife, glaring at her like a tiger watching its prey. Enchanting walked step by step towards the two. "Umo has already become very powerful. If I want to restrain him, perhaps I'll have to capture the two of you." With that, she approached the two step by step. The two looked at each other and saw the determination in each other's eyes. Without a doubt, Enchanting wanted to capture them and then threaten Tang Zheng. How could they let Enchanting have her way? They already felt very guilty for not being able to help Tang Zheng, so how could they allow themselves to be a burden to Tang Zheng? Thus, they definitely could not fall into Enchanting's hands. The two nodded inwardly, understanding each other's intentions. Then, with a flash of sword light, two light swords lit up, especially dazzling in the night. Enchanting looked at the two in astonishment. In her impression, they weren't this powerful. She didn't expect them to become so strong. But so what? How could they be her match? She reached out and grabbed at the air, causing the air to suddenly shrink, causing the two to feel their bodies tighten. They quickly flew towards Enchanting. "Cut!" Wu Junshan shouted and the light sword fell, cutting the air in front of him. The feeling of restraint immediately disappeared, and the two were quickly freed. This, Enchanting was shocked. She did not expect the other party to break free so quickly. She quickly found the answer. Her heart was in turmoil, and her face was slightly pale. "My heavenly Tao was actually restricted when I used it. What caused this?" Enchanting was puzzled. She looked around and felt as if there was really an energy suppressing her. On the other hand, Wu Junshan and Lan Yu were full of fighting spirit, as if they were not affected at all. Is there really something fishy about this place? Thinking of this, he was not in a hurry to attack. Instead, he stared at the two and asked, "What is this place?" When Wu Junshan and Lan Yu saw that she had actually stopped again, they couldn't help but reveal astonished expressions. They said, "If you don't know where this place is, how did you come here? Moreover, you passed through the wordless wall. How did you do it?" Lan Yu did not answer the question truthfully. This involved the heavenly Tao, so she naturally had to keep it a secret. "It seems like you two really do have many secrets. I will slowly find out all of these secrets." Enchanting looked at the two with a burning gaze. "Wishful thinking," Lan Yu said resolutely. Enchanting did not care at all. This place was so strange, and Wu Junshan and Lan Yu had appeared. He could not help but think a little more. Perhaps the heavenly Tao had her come here not only for these two, but also for a deeper reason. It was just that the heavenly Tao could not explain it clearly. She could not help but feel a strong interest. She wanted to investigate and see what was so mystical about this place that it could actually deceive the mysteries of the heavens. However, she first had to restrain the two in front of her. Her figure moved, and she attacked again. The air seemed to solidify, and it swept towards the two. Wu Junshan and Lan Yu were completely focused, paying attention to all movements. They immediately discovered the abnormality, and the two immediately counterattacked. The moonlight in the sky seemed to fall into their hands. Two silver-white sword lights arrived in front of Enchanting in a breath's time. Enchanting reached out with both hands and actually caught the two sword lights. However, the strength of the sword lights far exceeded her expectations. The air was completely cut apart, and the air around her began to boil. The blazing air caused her breathing to become hurried involuntarily. Enchanting's eyes flashed with a frightening light. She tenderly rebuked, "Break?" The sword light split into two, breaking into two. The sword light dissipated. Enchanting did not even have time to catch her breath before another two sword lights appeared out of nowhere, violently surging towards her. The two people's attacks were endless. One of them went on the defensive, using swift and violent attacks to attack Yan Qingyi like a torrential storm. Although Yan Qingyi blocked and even counterattacked, it was far from over. In a flash, the two sides had already exchanged dozens of blows. Yan Qingyi did not completely suppress the two as she had expected. Instead, the two sides were evenly matched. Yan Qingyi's eyes widened involuntarily. She finally understood that she had underestimated her opponents and overestimated herself. The two people's strength had taken a qualitative leap, and due to some mysterious restriction, she was unable to completely wield the might of the heavenly Tao. This caused the two sides to be evenly matched. She was filled with resentment. If it were not for this damned place, why would she be in such a passive position? She could not even take care of these two people. Wu Junshan and Lan Yu became more and more courageous as they fought. The two of them had practiced this sword technique for a long time, but they still lacked actual combat experience. Yan Qingyi happened to make up for this, and became the best practical opponent for them. The two of them were originally husband and wife, and after practicing this sword technique, their minds were practically connected. A simple glance or a small movement was enough for them to understand each other's intentions. Then, after harmoniously coordinating with each other, it was flawless, causing the power of their attacks to increase exponentially. The battle had already reached its climax. In fact, both sides knew that there was no way to defeat the other. Yan Qingyi had once thought of a way to defeat them one by one, which would make it much easier to deal with them. However, Wu Junshan and Lan Yu seemed to be a single entity. She had no way of defeating them one by one. Attacking one was attacking both of them. This was like a curse, and she had no way of breaking this curse. What should I do? Yan Qingyi was anxious. If she could not break through, then this would continue. In the long run, how could she complete the Heavenly Tao's arrangement? She really hoped that the Heavenly Tao would contact her again and let her know what to do. Perhaps what the purpose of this trip was. Perhaps even the Heavenly Tao did not completely know the purpose of this trip and what was going on. All kinds of complicated thoughts surfaced in her mind, and she had all kinds of different guesses. The sky brightened, then darkened, then brightened again. The two sides had already fought for a long time, and they were both physically and mentally exhausted. Finally, both sides had no choice but to stop and breathe like cows. Their eyes were filled with helplessness as they looked at each other. They had no way of defeating each other, so what could they do? They would fight again after resting. Both sides understood that it was extremely difficult to avoid this kind of anxious situation. They had to continue fighting unless there was a victor. Without a doubt, this place would not be peaceful for a very long time. As for who would win and who would lose in the end, it was unknown when the result would be revealed. Chapter 16-17. The Spring Festival was a day when thousands of families reunited. The capital suddenly seemed empty, but Tang Zheng's villa area was still very lively. Many people had left the capital. Although they all wanted to accompany Tang Zheng, they all had their own families. Every festive season, family reunion was the right thing to do. Fang Shishir returned to Ordinary Balance's home, while Yi Dingdong's family stayed in Dianan. They realized the importance of Dianan to martial artists and were reluctant to leave. Wu and Li Xiaotian also stayed in Dianan. Wu presided over the overall situation in Dianan, while Li Xiaotian's Li Palace coordinated and had complete control of Dianan. Lu Qingmei's relationship with her father was not very good, and she did not like the officialdom. As a result, although her father was a high official, she deliberately stayed away from him. But now, because of the attack of his opponent, her father had retreated early. Lu Qingmei still had this father in her heart, so she decided to go back to see him and comfort him. Naturally, she could not stay to accompany Tang Zheng for the Spring Festival, and had returned to her country long ago. Tang Zheng was almost always away from home, although she had once vowed to pursue Tang Zheng with lofty aspirations. But reality was always cruel. Tang Zheng could not even take care of the other women, so how could she have a chance? Moreover, Anne was a princess after all, and her thoughts were completely different from ordinary people. Ever since she saw Tang Zheng's deep feelings for other women, Not only was she not jealous, she was extremely moved. Thus, she quietly began to disappear from Tang Zheng's world and return to her own country. However, she did not completely separate herself from Tang Zheng. After all, Tang Zheng still had so many industries abroad, and she was also involved in them. The Empyrean fairy had already left and her whereabouts were unknown. She was determined to revive the Emperor of Heaven before she could return again. Linger's momentum was very strong, and her popularity soared. She even had the opportunity to perform on the Spring Festival Gala alone. She was busy with work and did not have the chance to accompany Tang Zheng for the new year. Everyone went their separate ways. In the end, there were very few people left in the capital. But Tang Zheng was not alone, because he had Mu Hongyan and her daughter by his side. They no longer had to return to Dianan, so naturally, they would spend the new year with Tang Zheng. Other than that, there were also many members of the sorcerer tribe. This big family caused the villa area to be decorated with lanterns and streamers. It was very lively. Moreover, many of the traditional customs and programs of the sorcerer tribe had been passed down, which pushed the festive atmosphere to its peak. The elder of the sorcerer tribe had already discussed with Tang Zheng that during the spring festival, the sorcerer tribe would hold a grand competition to test the results of the sorcerer tribe's cultivation over the past year. Tang Zheng gladly agreed. Although he was the emissary of the sorcerer tribe, he did not take care of the sorcerer tribe much. Usually, it was the elders of the sorcerer tribe who were in charge of the sorcerer tribe. He would take this opportunity to test the strength of the sorcerer tribe, and at the same time, unearth the best among them and entrust them with heavy responsibilities. Without a doubt, this was a crucial opportunity not only for Tang Zheng, but also for many of the sorcerer tribe members. They had witnessed the rise of Tang Zheng and felt honored to have such an emissary. If they could receive a few pointers from the emissary during the competition, they would definitely benefit greatly. If their results were outstanding, then the emissary would definitely look at them in a different light. In the future, they would have the chance to follow him and fight in the north and south. The sorcerer tribe was a natural warrior. They were born with a warlike gene, and as their strength increased, this point was completely revealed. No sorcerer tribe member wanted to be a coward, so naturally, they would not miss this heaven-sent opportunity. In addition, it was said that the emissary had prepared a great gift. The winner would have the chance to receive these rewards, and their strength would naturally rise to a higher level in the future. The sorcerer tribe had been preparing for this day for a long time. On New Year's Eve, the sorcerer tribe had woken up early before dawn. The villa area had already set up an arena. There was a hubbub of voices, flags fluttering, and lanterns decorated the area. It was extremely lively. The emissary of the sorcerer tribe had been waiting at Tang Zheng's residence for a long time. When he saw Tang Zheng walk out, he hurriedly went up to him and shouted respectfully, "Sir Envoy, everyone is ready." Tang Zheng nodded his head solemnly, but Nana could no longer hold back the curiosity in her heart. She rushed out excitedly like a small whirlwind, and did not forget to cheer, "I want to compete too, I want to compete too." Mu Hongyan looked at her daughter helplessly and said with a faint smile, "This girl was so excited last night that she wanted to participate in the competition. I don't know who she learned it from, but she's so competitive." Tang Zheng looked at Mu Hongyan affectionately and said, "Like mother, like daughter. She must have learned this from you." Mu Hongyan was a strong woman in the business world, and many men could not compare to her. Therefore, Tang Zheng was not wrong. Mu Hongyan laughed involuntarily, "You're flattering me. Everyone is waiting. Let's go." The two of them walked side by side towards the arena. They realized that Tian Chanzi and his grandfather were already waiting for them. They were looking at the imposing witch tribe warriors with gratification. The witch tribe warriors were born with divine strength. Each of them had their heads held high and their chests puffed out. They were like sharp swords standing there, causing people to respect them. When everyone saw Tang Zheng, their eyes widened. They were brimming with energy and their eyes burned like flames as they stared straight at him. Tian Chanzi was extremely moved. Tang Dehai was extremely gratified. He had such a strong team. If not for the witch tribe, this place would definitely not be as safe as it was now. The witch tribe did not fight in the north and south, but they ensured that Tang Zheng's rear was not on fire. This was the greatest contribution. But this time's competition caused Tang Zheng's heart to move. The witch tribe was like a flower in a greenhouse. Most of them had not experienced actual combat. If they really encountered actual combat, it was unknown what level the witch tribe could display. Tang Zheng had to change the situation. This was an excellent opportunity. In the future, the witch tribe could participate in the war, especially against the sky beyond sky. The power of the sky beyond sky was huge. Even with Xiao Bai, the royal family, there would inevitably be a great war in the future. This was not something that a single person could completely control. Therefore, it was necessary to reserve enough combat power and prepare for a rainy day. Only then could they win this war in the future. When Tang Zheng walked onto the arena, there was complete silence. Everyone stopped talking, but in the next second, there were thunderous cheers. They kept waving their hands, more excited than fans seeing a star. Tang Zheng's position in the hearts of the witch tribe was more important than their own lives. How could any star be compared to him? Tang Zheng was also excited. He looked at the crowd with a burning gaze. He raised his hand and pressed it down. Only then did the cheers gradually calm down. However, there was no way to stop the pairs of blazing eyes. Brothers and sisters of the witch tribe, it's been hard on you to follow me for the past year. Tang Zheng's feelings were sincere. After he finished speaking, he bowed to everyone. No, Lord Envoy. The witch tribe did not dare to accept this big gift. Tang Zheng smiled and said to himself, on the eve of the spring festival, everyone is gathered together to celebrate the grand occasion. I hope that everyone will perform perfectly in this competition. For the outstanding ones, I have prepared rich prizes. When these words were spoken, everyone was in an uproar again. They knew that Tang Zheng's prize was definitely not an ordinary item. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 16-18. Bang, bang, bang. A huge drum stood at the side of the stage. A witch clan member held a drumstick and began to hit it heavily. The sound of the drum rumbled and shook one's heart. One by one, the witch clan members' blood began to boil as they walked towards the small stages. There were already many small stages built in the empty plaza, and the selected witch clan warriors walked straight towards the stage. Not all of the witch clan members would be on stage this time. The witch clan had already grown to hundreds of people, and those who participated in the competition were the best of the best. Therefore, they had already gone through a round of screening. Every single one of them was a warrior of the witch clan, an elite amongst warriors. All of them were in high spirits, exuding vitality. Their muscles were strong and powerful, and their veins seemed to be exposed on their arms, as if there were small pythons wrapped around their arms. Every witch clan member was eager to give it a try, their faces brimming with the passion for battle. Bang, bang, bang. One figure after another jumped onto the stage, causing the stage to shake non-stop, as if it was about to collapse. The witch clan elder asked for instructions from Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng nodded his head slightly and said with a loud voice, "Let the competition begin." Several people on the stage cheered and attacked their opponents at the same time. Immediately, the arena heads began to fight fiercely. The shamans were born with divine strength, and they especially liked pure strength battles. Each of them was exceptionally tall, so this kind of battle was extremely intense. It was filled with the aura of hormones, causing the hearts of those who watched to beat rapidly, as if they were about to jump out of their chests. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up. The overall level of the witch clan had progressed very quickly, and not only were there men participating in the competition, there were also women. In the beginning, the witch clan was a completely male society, but ever since they merged with the modern society, the women in the witch clan had also rapidly developed and grown stronger. There were already people whose strength was not inferior to the men in the past. With regards to this, Tang Zheng was extremely gratified and could not help but take a few more glances. One of the female characters was not tall and was clearly different from the other female characters. Huh? Tang Zheng raised his eyebrows, stared straight at that person and asked, "Elder, that person looks thin and weak, but his strength is not low. You have really taught him well, to actually unearth so many talents." The elder also looked at him with a burning gaze. He looked over and saw through the clues at a glance. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead as he said resentfully, "That person doesn't seem to be from the shaman tribe." "What?" Tang Zheng frowned and asked in surprise, "If it's not the sorcerer tribe, then who is it? Is there anyone else here?" The elder apologized and said, "That seems to be the person you brought back." "Bring me back? Where did I bring it back from?" Tang Zheng was confused. That was clearly a girl. When did he bring a girl back? Why didn't he have any impression of her? The elder understood Tang Zheng's doubts and explained, "You're usually too busy, so I didn't tell you about this small matter. Actually, I didn't expect this girl to progress so quickly. She's Ling Qinyu, the one you brought back from the southwest border." "Ling Qinyu?" Tang Zheng was shocked. With his extraordinary memory, he naturally searched for this name in the depths of his memory. But wasn't that a boy? How did it become a girl? He still remembered when he killed the enemy, Ling Qinyu decisively rejected him. It was extremely difficult to link her to the thin but agile figure on the stage. So she was a girl disguised as a man. She actually deceived my eyes. He finally understood why Ling Qinyu did that. The southwest border was a dangerous place. It was full of intrigue and blood. Although she had the protection of her grandfather, a boy's identity was still better than a girl's. He couldn't help but remember that the old man entrusted Ling Qinyu to him before he died. After returning to the country, he handed her over to his subordinates. He was distracted by other things and didn't ask about her. She also became a cultivator? Tang Zheng asked curiously. Yes, at first she wasn't a cultivator. But since she came back with us from the southwest border, she was closer to us. It didn't take long for her to become familiar with our clansmen. Later on, seeing that her heart was firm, her talent wasn't bad, and she also had spiritual energy, I taught her some cultivation techniques. I didn't think that she would improve so quickly and actually sneak onto the stage. I don't even know how she got onto the stage. The elder said in confusion. This is my dereliction of duty. Please punish me. The elder lowered his head and took the initiative to admit his mistake. He was willing to accept the punishment. Tang Zheng smiled unconcernedly and said, Elder, what crime did you commit? Don't make a big fuss out of nothing. This is my dereliction of duty. I was entrusted by others, but I didn't do my duty. Instead, it was you who made up for my mistake. I can't thank you enough, so why would I punish you? The elder was relieved and said, Then I'll call her down. She can't be mischievous anymore. Tang Zheng looked deeply at Ling Qinyu and said, Forget it. Since she went onto the stage, then it's her choice. Let's see what kind of results she can achieve. Nana came out of nowhere and hung onto Tang Zheng's arm. She pouted and said, Brother, I also want to go onto the stage to compete. Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily and raised his arm high. Nana was like a naughty monkey, hanging onto his arm and not letting go. She stubbornly said, Brother, I'm begging you. Promise me. Didn't you see that Ling Qinyu also went onto the stage? You also know her? Tang Zheng asked in astonishment. Nana nodded. She usually works very hard in her cultivation. She often goes to the small forest to cultivate. I occasionally see her when I go out to play. Then you know that she works hard in her cultivation. What about yourself? Have you worked hard in your cultivation? Tang Zheng deliberately asked seriously. Nana proudly raised her head and said, Of course I have worked hard in my cultivation. Am I not going onto the stage to prove it? Tang Zheng didn't want to mess around with her. He glanced at Mu Hongyan. She understood and immediately hugged her daughter and said, Nana, be good. Don't disturb your brother. Nana snorted and pouted her lips in grievance. They can go onto the stage, but I can't. And you're biased, bad brother. Looking at her comical appearance, Tang Zheng couldn't help but laugh out loud, causing Nanan's mouth to pout even higher. The battle on the stage became extremely intense and entered its final stage. In a direct confrontation, the pure strength of the battle caused adrenaline to soar. One of them was Yi Yuan, who was originally the #1 expert of the witch clan's younger generation, so he was naturally the focus of attention. The other person was actually Ling Qinyu, which caused everyone to be taken aback. To read the latest novel, please visit. Chapter 1619. Yi Yuan and Ling Qinyu's performance was the most eye-catching, especially Ling Qinyu's skinny body, which actually contained a powerful energy. Her opponent was forced to retreat step by step and had no way to organize an effective counterattack. Bang, bang, bang. A series of sounds of people falling to the ground rang out. The battle came to an abrupt end, and the victor was decided. Only the victors of the 10 stages were left standing proudly. The 10 of them were the most elite warriors of the witch clan. Their faces were filled with pride, and their gazes lingered on each other with high fighting spirit. Tang Zheng took a step forward and looked at the 10 victors with gratification. His gaze lingered on Ling Qinyu for a few more seconds. Ling Qinyu met his gaze, and her heart skipped a beat. She understood that her identity had been completely seen through by Tang Zheng. She took a deep breath and suppressed all sorts of complicated thoughts, trying her best to remain calm and indifferent. Tang Zheng looked at her with gratification and said in a clear voice, "During the intermission, the winners of the next 5 matches will receive rewards, from pills to treasures. The rewards are all different, but without a doubt, the final winner will receive the greatest reward." As soon as he finished speaking, the 10 victors all revealed looks of pleasant surprise. They looked at each other in dismay, unable to hide the excitement in their hearts. Yi Yuan and Tang Zheng were familiar with each other, so he mustered up his courage and asked, "May I ask what the final winner's prize is?" Tang Zheng looked at Yi Yuan with a smile. His blazing gaze and resolute gaze seemed to have already taken the reward into his bag. "Sacred artifact." Tang Zheng raised his finger and spoke concisely, but with a loud voice. "Sacred artifact." Cries of surprise rang out one after another, and the sound of gasps rose and fell one after another. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. A normal magic treasure or pill was enough to make them happy, but a sacred artifact was enough to make them go wild with joy. Really? Some people were skeptical? Tang Zheng made the final decision and said, "Of course I'm a man of my word. The final prize is the sacred artifact. The final winner will receive this sacred artifact." Immediately, no one doubted this point anymore. Those 10 people all revealed expressions of ecstasy, and the others were endlessly envious. They actually missed this kind of opportunity. Tian Chanzi looked at Tang Zheng in surprise. He didn't know that Tang Zheng had prepared a sacred artifact as a reward. That was a sacred artifact, not a magical artifact. Where did he get a sacred artifact? Tang Zheng smiled mysteriously, but he didn't explain further. Of course, he wasn't just making empty promises. He had really prepared a saint tool. This was a transcendent artifact that he had specially spent several days gathering materials and refining. The 9 revolving pill furnace could already refine a saint artifact, but it had extremely high requirements for the raw materials. Tang Zheng had painstakingly searched everywhere for enough raw materials to refine a saint artifact. Although he had the ability to refine artifacts, he was limited by the lack of raw materials. Even the cleverest woman could not cook without rice, so he had no other choice. However, to the others, this was already an extremely rare miracle. During this short period of rest, none of the 10 contestants dared to waste it. They were filled with even more fighting spirit for the upcoming battles, and were all prepared to charge towards the top of the mountain. Although Yi Yuan's cultivation was profound and he was one of the best in the younger generation, he did not dare to let his guard down when he saw the passionate gazes of the others. Tang Zheng took a few steps forward, faced the crowd, and said in a clear voice, "The second round of the competition begins." The 10 people split into 5 groups and started the intense battle again. Although they had consumed a lot of energy and had not completely recovered, the battle was even more intense than before. It could really be described as cruel. Everyone gave it their all. All sorts of magic treasure flew in the air, and rumbling sounds could be heard incessantly, like the sound of thunder exploding. If not for the protection of the array formation, Such a huge commotion would have already spread to the outside world, attracting countless gazes. This was also what Tang Zheng was relying on. No matter what kind of earth-shattering commotion happened in the villa area, the people outside would not know about it, so the competition on the stage would not affect the people outside at all. The sounds of cheering rose and fell one after another. It was extremely intense, and finally, someone had decided the victor. Some people fell from the stage, while others were restrained by their opponent's magic treasure and lost their ability to move. Yi Yuan was the first to win. There was no doubt about his strength. He was able to defeat his opponent, and the two of them did not seem to be on the same level. Tang Jing nodded his head in gratification. As expected of the witch clan who had followed him since the beginning, his strength could not be underestimated. Tang Jing had already seen that Yi Yuan's cultivation had actually reached the 9th stage of the Yuaning realm. One must know that it was almost impossible for him to reach this step normally. However, ever since the witch clan followed Tang Jing, the spirit qi of heaven and earth had also improved. With the true teachings of Tang Jing, the witch clan was also good at refining pills. Because of these combined factors, the potential of the witch clan had completely exploded. It would not be an exaggeration to say that they had traveled 1,000 miles in a day. Suddenly, Tang Jing squinted his eyes and looked at another scene in astonishment. Out of the 5 matches, 4 of them had already been decided, and there was only 1 match left that was still in an intense battle. However, what shocked everyone was that this match was in an anxious state, and they could not help but raise their eyebrows. Ling Qinyu's strength has clearly just entered the Yuaning realm. Why is he able to hold back that Yuaning 5th stage opponent? Tang Zheng could see the disparity in strength between the two sides with a single glance. Ling Qinyu's improvement was indeed beyond his expectations, which meant that Ling Qinyu was indeed a good seedling for cultivation, with limitless potential. However, no matter how great his potential was, there was no way to make up for this kind of gap. However, Ling Qinyu was like a roly-poly. Although he was exhausted, he did not fall down. Instead, he dragged his opponent step by step into the abyss. Suddenly, Ling Qinyu saw a flaw in her opponent's defense and attacked. Bang! His opponent flew out of the stage. Although he was unwilling, he had nothing to say. Because if he lost, he lost. There was no excuse to speak of. Ling Qinyu directly collapsed on the stage, gasping for breath, exhausted, and drenched in sweat, as if he had been fished out of a river. There were 5 remaining victors, but there were only 2 matches. One of them would draw lots to advance, and there would be no need to compete. If one of them was lucky enough, then they would be able to rest, reap the benefits, and prepare for the next big battle. Ling Qinyu was very lucky. She had actually drawn the lucky lot to advance directly. All she needed to do was rest and wait for the next big battle. The others looked at Ling Qinyu, and all of them praised her good luck. However, no one thought that her good luck would last forever, because the closer it was to the end, the more it would depend on one's strength, and not just luck. The 3rd round of the competition began. Tang Zheng did not pay attention to the stage, and instead walked over to Ling Qinyu, who was sitting cross-legged, and continuously adjusting her breathing. Nanan was alive and kicking. She also chased after her. Chapter 1620. Tang Zheng looked at Ling Qinyu with a burning gaze. He felt guilty and said, "How have you been these days?" Ling Qinyu did not answer. Instead, she knelt in front of Tang Zheng and kowtowed to him several times. Heaven's Book 2. Tang Zheng was shocked. He hurriedly helped her up and asked, "What are you doing? Why do you have to do this? If it wasn't for you saving me, I would have already died at the border. So, my life was given to me by you. You are my benefactor," Ling Qinyu emotionally said. "You're exaggerating." Tang Zheng directly helped her up. She could no longer kneel, but her eyes were still full of excitement when she looked at Tang Zheng. "Your talent is extremely good, which is why you can cultivate so quickly. I am very gratified. In the future, you should continue to work hard so that you won't let down your grandfather's sacrifice," Tang Zheng said with heartfelt words. "Yes, I will remember." Ling Qinyu nodded heavily. Her face was very serious. Nana tilted her head and looked at the two. She suspiciously said, "Sister Chinyu, you are so powerful. Let's compete and see who is more powerful." Nana's eyelids jumped. She was eager to try. Ling Chinyu had a difficult expression on her face as she said in shame, "Nanan, you are so powerful, how could I be your opponent?" Nana pouted and said, "How am I powerful? The last time I went to Dianan, I didn't help Brother much. I'm not powerful at all." During the trip to Dianan, Nana vowed to share Tang Zheng's worries. However, in the end, she did not get what she wanted. After all, she was a little girl. In such a dangerous society, strength was not the decisive factor. Ling Chinyu was at a loss. She looked helplessly at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He grabbed Nana's shoulder and deliberately said with a straight face, "Nana, don't be ridiculous. Don't disturb Qianyu's rest. She still has a big battle to fight." Tang Zheng led the reluctant Nana away and turned his attention to the ring. The battle was very intense, and everyone was giving it their all. Yi Yuan was still extremely dazzling, his attacks were extremely sharp, causing people to raise their eyebrows. Boom! The stage beneath Yi Yuan's feet collapsed with a loud bang. His opponent fell into the ruins of the stage and was unable to get up again. He was completely defeated. Following that, the scores of the other battle arena were also given out. The two victors became the focus of everyone's attention, receiving everyone's praise and envy. A light flashed in Tang Zheng's hand as he said, "This is a bottle of medicinal pills, and this is a heaven-grade magic artifact. The second and third place will receive these two prizes. Among the three of you, two will receive these prizes." Everyone held their breaths and waited quietly, because they knew very well that Tang Zheng would reveal the third prize. Sure enough, a light flashed in Tang Zheng's hand, and a wide and thick gigantic sword appeared in front of Tang Zheng. It emitted a sharp light and floated lightly in the air. Especially the holy inscription on it, it was extremely eye-catching. Holy artifact! One by one, cries of surprise rose and fell. There were also sounds of gasping as pairs of eyes stared at the gigantic sword with burning gazes. Tang Zheng himself used a sword, so he naturally had the most experience in refining a sword, so the magic treasure he chose was a sword. Furthermore, he had spent a lot of effort and precious materials to refine these materials, and there was only one sword. However, this sword could not be compared to the mysterious hidden sword. Although it was a holy artifact, there were many holy inscriptions, and it was not simple. Even so, it was still a holy artifact, which meant that he could refine a holy artifact. One had to know how difficult it was for Immerse to refine a holy artifact back then. In the shaman tribe, no one had a holy artifact, not even the elders. Therefore, if anyone was lucky enough to obtain a holy artifact, they would be the only one in the shaman tribe. Whether it was glory or status, they would be extraordinary. Under the dazzling light of the holy artifact, the other members of the shaman tribe all revealed looks of envy as they stared at the two victors. The remaining three people would draw lots to decide who was the lucky one. In other words, the winner did not need to compete at all. He could directly advance to the finals and join the ranks of the competitors for the holy artifact. Who would be the lucky one? No one was optimistic about Ling Chenyu. She had already been lucky once, so it was impossible for her to be lucky again. When the results of the draw came out, everyone was shocked. Ling Chenyu was actually the lucky one again. How can her luck be so good? Many people looked at Ling Chenyu enviously. Tang Zheng sighed. Ling Chenyu was really lucky. Back then she had met him at the brink of death. Now she had actually drawn the lucky lot twice. However, this was the result. No one could criticize or question it. Yi Yuan and the other clansmen once again walked onto the stage. After a series of battles, the two of them had consumed a lot of energy, but their fighting spirit was still high. Boom, boom, boom. The battle between the two was extremely intense. The stage did not last for long before it turned into ruins. However, the battle had not stopped. The ruins flew up into the sky like a huge ball, completely enveloping them. They could no longer be seen. However, the sounds of the intense battle could still be clearly heard by everyone. Everyone opened their eyes wide and stared at the battlefield without blinking. Crash! All of a sudden, the ruins fell from the sky. Everything fell silent. Everyone stared at the ruins. Only one person stood there proudly. Yi Yuan. Everyone cheered as Yi Yuan's name resounded through the clouds. Yi Yuan took a deep breath. His face was pale white. After a series of battles, his stamina and power had been greatly depleted. However, he still stood proudly. His desire for victory had overcome the limits of his body. Tang Zheng looked at him with gratification, thinking that he was not mistaken. Yi Yuan was indeed very outstanding. What followed was the great battle between Yi Yuan and Ling Qinyu. Everyone's blood was boiling. Who would win between Yi Yuan and Ling Qinyu? After Yi Yuan rested for a while, the two of them finally stood face to face on the stage. The battle seemed to be about to begin at any time, but Ling Qinyu suddenly stopped. I request for a pause. He has yet to recover his strength, so I will not win. Ling Qinyu said indifferently. She had already rested for enough time and recovered to her peak condition. However, Yi Yuan was obviously not like that. She could see it, so she spoke bluntly. Hua! Everyone started to discuss amongst themselves. They did not expect her to be so frank. Yi Yuan's face was red as he said, no need. If I still can't defeat her, I won't have the qualifications to stand here. Although Ling Qinyu was only in his teens, ever since he followed Tang Zheng, his body had grown taller and taller than before. Yi Yuan was actually a teenager in his teens, but he was very tall and sturdy. Ling Qinyu still looked very small and skinny in front of him. If you insist, then I am willing to admit defeat. Ling Qinyu had a lot of character, so he simply turned around and walked down the stage, leaving Yi Yuan standing alone on the stage. Chapter 1621. Ling Qinyu's actions caused everyone to be taken aback. They never thought that after working so hard, she would actually be willing to admit defeat at the last moment? What kind of show was this? Yi Yuan looked at her in confusion, but he could not guess what she was thinking. He asked suspiciously, what do you mean? Ling Qinyu said calmly, I've already said it before, fighting with a person who is almost exhausted, even if I win, I will not win. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up, the corner of his mouth curled up, and looked at her with a smile. He already understood Ling Qinyu's thoughts, and could not help but praise her. It was not easy to have such courage at such a young age. He had not saved her in vain. However, Yi Yuan said with a red face, I won't lose, I still have the strength. Before he could finish, Tang Zheng interrupted him and said, Yi Yuan, I will bestow you with a pellet. After you consume it, you will be able to recover your strength and stamina very quickly, and then fight with Ling Qinyu with all your might. This way, it will be the fairest. No matter if you win or lose, no one will complain. I don't use pills. Yi Yuan still wanted to argue, but Tang Zheng flicked his finger, and a pill flew in front of him. He had no choice but to catch it. Looking at the sparkling and translucent pill in his palm that was emitting a strange fragrance, he had no choice but to obey Tang Zheng's orders. Immediately, a powerful force rushed from his throat to his 8 extraordinary meridians and internal organs. In almost a blink of an eye, Yi Yuan's exhausted power had completely recovered. He was wild with joy and hurriedly moved his muscles and bones. His joints were like firecrackers that kept popping out. Bang! He smashed his fists together and stared at Ling Qinyu with a burning gaze. He eagerly said, I'm done, let's fight to our heart's content and decide the victor. Ling Qinyu nodded his head calmly and said simply, all right. His figure drifted and disappeared in the blink of an eye. He turned into a gust of wind and lightly flew towards Yi Yuan. However, this seemingly light movement contained boundless killing intent. Yi Yuan's pupils constricted, he anxiously used his sacred art and started to fight intensely with Ling Qinyu. Immediately, everyone's eyes were attracted by the two's drifting figures. Unlike the previous head-on battle, Ling Qinyu changed her strategy. It turned out that when she competed with her other opponents, she would always choose to face them head-on. Moreover, she was not inferior to her other opponents at all. But now that she was facing Yi Yuan, she cleverly changed her strategy. Instead, she adopted a guerrilla tactic and did not completely clash head-on with Yi Yuan. Ling Qinyu was a smart person. She was very clear about the difference in cultivation between her and Yi Yuan. This gap that was like a chasm was not that easy to make up for. Therefore, if she chose to fight head-on, the result would be clear soon. She would lose without a doubt. If he could not win, he could only win with his wits. Yi Yuan's patience was not very good. This was the opponent's weakness that Ling Qinyu knew. Once Yi Yuan's patience was worn down, he would panic, and only then would he have the opportunity to take advantage of it. The moment the two sides exchanged blows, the others started to discuss, especially Ling Qinyu's strategy. Many people were shocked. The corner of Tang Zheng's mouth curled up into a smile. Of course, he was very clear about the difference between the two, and could not help but say with interest, "How smart." Nana tilted her head and asked in confusion, "Why doesn't she fight head-on? That would save a lot of time." Tang Zheng patted her head and said with a smile, "Then why don't you think about it yourself?" Nana scratched her head and thought for a long time, then shook her head blankly. "I don't understand. Why do you keep dragging this out when you can clearly end it quickly?" With her small head, she really couldn't figure out why she had to go through so much trouble. Tang Zheng laughed dryly and asked Tian Chanzi, who was beside him, "Who do you think will win?" Tian Chanzi's gaze was unwilling to move away, and said in a deep voice, "Why are there so many monsters by your side? This little girl is the god of progress. It is truly rare." In addition, she was also very smart, and actually knew how to outsmart him. Although Yi Yuan's cultivation is stronger, I'm afraid it won't be good for him either. As for victory or defeat, it might be 50-50. Tian Chanzi had seen too many times how the weak defeated the strong, especially when it happened to Tang Zheng, so he was not so superstitious about the overwhelming advantage of cultivation. Sometimes, having a high cultivation did not mean that one would definitely win. Tang Zheng looked at him in surprise, and said meaningfully, "I never thought that you would think so highly of Ling Qinyu?" Tian Chanzi asked in surprise, "Don't tell me you don't think so?" The corner of Tang Zheng's mouth curled up into a mysterious smile, but he did not say anything. The battle between the two turned into a long battle, and Yi Yuan's patience was slowly being worn down. He was a person who was used to cutting the Gordian knot, and had never encountered such a torturous battle before. In the past, he had always ended the battle as quickly as possible. Whether he won or lost, the outcome would be revealed in an instant. This kind of prolonged battle was truly a form of torture. His eyes gradually turned red as he roared and attacked Ling Qinyu. It was precisely this sudden attack that caused him to accidentally reveal a flaw. Ling Qinyu had been waiting for this kind of opportunity the entire time, so how could he miss it? With a shake of his hand, a cold light directly attacked Yi Yuan's body. Bang! One had to know that he was a person who had cultivated the primal chaos Vajra spell before, so his body's resistance to attacks was far greater than that of ordinary people. However, there was still a wound on his body. From this, it could be seen how fierce Ling Qinyu's attack was. However, Yi Yuan was not defeated so easily. He flipped in the air and suddenly raised his head, staring at Ling Qinyu with burning eyes, as if his eyes were about to spit fire. He did not stop at all and rushed out again. Just like this, the angrier he was, the fiercer his attacks seemed, but in reality, the more flaws there were. Many times, he was actually knocked down by Ling Qinyu many times. This scene caused the others to be shocked, and they all cried out in alarm. The Witch Clan elder also stood up from his chair with an anxious look on his face. Yi Yuan was the last person in the Witch Clan. If he lost, then where would the Witch Clan's face go? He anxiously looked at Tang Zheng and said anxiously, "Yi Yuan." Tang Zheng waved his hand and said, "He's too smooth. It's a good thing that someone can grind his temper." Just as he finished speaking, a thought popped up in his mind. Ever since the Witch Clan left the 10,000 huge mountains, they had been living under his protection. Although they had participated in several great battles, their independence was far from enough, and their experience was also far from enough. If this continued, the title of natural warrior would not be worthy of its name. If the Witch Clan wanted to transform, They would have to experience the tempering of countless amounts of blood and fire. Just like himself, he had also experienced countless amounts of blood and fire, the test and tempering of life and death, before he could become as strong as he was today. This reminded him that after the spring festival, where would the witch clan go? He would probably have to think about this question. Guarding the house should not be the mission of the witch clan. The witch clan had another mission. Chapter 1622. The battle between the two continued. Yi Yuan had already passed the most difficult stage, and the situation had changed once again. In the end, the difference in strength between the two of them was too great. Ling Qinyu relied on her little tricks to gain the upper hand for a period of time. Yi Yuan heaved a long sigh of relief, stabilized his footing, and launched a swift and fierce counterattack. Ling Qinyu retreated step by step, her expression became unnatural, her cheeks flushed red, and she hastily responded. However, her defeat was already decided, and she was powerless to reverse the situation. Bang! After a muffled sound, she flew out and landed on the ground in a sorry state, unable to get up again. The strength of this attack was not small, and Yi Yuan was also angered by it. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, his cultivation was higher than his opponent's, yet he was still dragged into the mud, causing his face to lose all light. Naturally, he did not show any mercy when he attacked. Ling Qinyu spat out a mouthful of blood, her face becoming incomparably pale. Yi Yuan knew that he had failed, so he immediately rushed over and helped her up, asking with concern, "How are you?" Ling Qinyu shook her head slightly and said weakly, "I won't die, I lost." Although she had once hoped that she could defeat the strong as the weak, reality was still cruel. She had no choice but to accept all of this. However, she did not accept her fate just like that. She forced herself to say, "One day, I will defeat you." Yi Yuan never thought that she would actually have such courage. He could not help but laugh involuntarily, and the trace of resentment he originally had disappeared into thin air. "Do you really have that much confidence?" he teased. Ling Qinyu nodded. "Of course I have confidence, and I have full confidence." Yi Yuan laughed out loud. "All right, then I'll wait for you." I announced that the winner of the competition is Yi Yuan. At the end of the competition, Tang Zheng stood on the high platform and looked around. He stared at the people of the witch clan who had bright eyes, and announced with a voice that was as loud as a bell. "Yi Yuan! Yi Yuan!" The cheers seemed to break through the clouds. His victory was well-deserved, and no one did not believe him. Naturally, he received the most cheers. "Yi Yuan, please come to the stage." Yi Yuan was extremely excited. He walked up the stage with large strides and stopped in front of Tang Zheng. Their eyes met, and the excitement on Yi Yuan's face and heart could not be concealed. "The other 4 winners, please come to the stage as well." Tang Zheng had said that there would be prizes for the top 5, so it was time to fulfill his promise. The 4 of them couldn't hide their excitement as they stepped onto the stage. Even Ling Qinyu's eyes were brimming with excitement. She had always been fighting alone, cultivating bitterly, and had received very little help from the outside world. If there was a prize, there was no doubt that it would increase her strength. Many pairs of eyes stared at the prizes in Tang Zheng's hand. The sacred tool was especially eye-catching. Tang Zheng glanced at the few of them and said in a clear voice, "In order to commend your wonderful performance, I will give you a prize. I hope that you will continue to work hard and not let my painstaking efforts go to waste." As soon as he finished speaking, the prize turned into a few rays of light and flew into everyone's hands. Immediately, someone was so excited that tears welled up in his eyes. His eyes were red as he said, "We will definitely remember your teachings and never dare to forget." Yi Yuan even knelt down on one knee. The sacred artifact sword stabbed into the high platform, and with a bang, the high platform trembled slightly. He said excitedly, "I, Yi Yuan, swear that I will obey your orders to the death. I swear I will obey your orders to the death." The others also knelt down on one knee, and even Ling Qinyu was no exception. The witch tribesmen knelt on the ground. Tang Zheng was so excited that he did not say a single word. Suddenly, The high platform beneath his feet shattered into pieces. It was actually unable to withstand the power of that sword strike. Tang Zheng and the rest did not fall down, but floated in the air. Otherwise, they would definitely be in a sorry state. Yi Yuan knelt in the ruins, looking slightly embarrassed. He was shocked and stammered, Tang Zheng did not mind, and laughed out loud. Today is New Year's Eve, the competition has ended, and the following is the new year, everyone eat and drink well. But cheers once again resounded through the clouds. Tang Zheng was having fun with the people at the open-air bonfire banquet, exchanging cups with the witch tribesmen, and every witch tribesman came to toast him. He could no longer remember how much he had drunk. Fortunately, his body had already been cultivated to an extremely strong state, so he did not fall down. Of course, if he were to use his sacred art, no matter how much wine he had, it would not be able to get him drunk. Now, with his physical body's resistance to alcohol, he was actually a little tipsy. Yi Yuan was already a little drunk. He was the biggest reaper, so naturally he could not avoid round after round of toasts. He also had a forthright personality and did not reject anyone. Suddenly, a small figure ran to his side and said coquettishly, "Big brother Yi Yuan, can I take a look at your sacred artifact?" Yi Yuan's sacred artifact had already been observed by countless people. He lowered his head and saw that it was actually Nana, so he naturally would not reject her. He carefully handed the sacred artifact over to her and warned, "Nana, this is a sacred artifact. Don't play around with it." Nana casually waved his hand a few times. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, streams of sword chi crisscrossed, and a crack appeared on the ground. The others were all very careful when observing the sacred artifact, unlike Nana, who was as casual as him. Yi Yuan was so scared that he woke up from his drunkenness and really wanted to take it back. He swallowed his saliva and advised, "Nana, this is a sacred artifact. You have to be careful." Nana rolled her eyes at him and said, "It's not like I've never seen a sacred artifact before. Furthermore, the quality of this sacred artifact is not high, so what's the point of being so precious?" Yi Yuan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The sacred artifact was not a treasure. Who else would dare to speak so arrogantly? Probably only Nana could do so. Her master was the mysterious lady of the ninth heaven, and she also had Tang Zheng who loved her so much, so no one could compare to her. Nana casually played with it a few times, then lost interest and casually threw it out. Yi Yuan hurriedly caught it, and could not bear to take it out again, hiding it tightly. However, he immediately noticed something strange. A pair of blazing eyes were staring straight at him, causing his scalp to go numb. He abruptly turned his head and discovered that the person staring at him was actually Nanan. That pair of big round eyes were perfectly round, like two black pearls. "Nana, why are you looking at me like that?" Yi Yuan asked curiously. "I want to challenge you." Nana said. "What, challenge me?" Yi Yuan thought that he had heard wrongly, and laughed involuntarily as he looked at her. Nana firmly nodded his head. "Yes, I want to challenge you. You are the strongest warrior in the witch clan, so of course I will choose the strongest warrior to challenge." Yi Yuan hurriedly hid the magic treasure in his bosom, as if he was afraid that Nana would covet his sacred artifact. Nana rolled her eyes at him, seeing through his thoughts, and said, "It's not like I'm greedy for your magic treasure. I don't care, I just want to challenge you." "Are you serious?" Yi Yuan heaved a sigh of relief. Nana nodded. "Of course it's true." Yi Yuan felt relieved. "All right, then we can spar a bit. Don't worry, I will definitely show mercy." Chapter 1623. No one noticed that one of the main characters, Yi Yuan, had disappeared. No one had deliberately circulated their energy to dissolve the alcohol, so many people were already dead drunk. Heavenly Voice Novel 2 Tang Zheng had already returned to his room, but he did not go to his own room. Instead, he was supported by Mu Hongyan to her room. Since the other women were not here, she would not miss this good opportunity. Tang Zheng immediately laid on the soft bed, his eyes blurred as he looked at Mu Hongyan. Mu Hongyan's face also turned red, like a ripe apple, as she stared at him in a daze. An invisible attraction spread between them, and the two heads slowly leaned against each other. The two mouths were tightly pressed together. After a long while, Mu Hongyan's heart raced, and she pushed him away while panting. She glanced at the door and said, "Be careful, Nana will see it when she comes in." "What are you afraid of?" Tang Zheng laughed sinisterly. "She's slowly growing up. She's smarter than the average child. She knows more than you think, just like a little adult." Mu Hongyan pouted. "She must have gone to play. Don't worry about her." Tang Zheng had just tasted a little sweetness. How could he be willing to give up just like that? Bang. However, just as he finished speaking, the door was pushed open by a strong force. Nana skipped in excitedly. Tang Zheng and Mu Hongyan bounced back as if they had been electrocuted. Mu Hongyan tidied up her clothes with a red face and pretended to be calm as she asked, "Nana, why are you so happy?" Nana opened her eyes wide and said excitedly, "Mom, let me tell you a piece of good news. I am the strongest." Tang Zheng and Mu Hongyan looked at her in confusion, not knowing what she meant. Seeing that the two of them did not understand what he meant, Nana pouted and said faintly, "I defeated Yi Yuan, isn't that powerful enough?" "Child, don't talk nonsense," Mu Hongyan lectured. "Are you serious?" Tang Zheng was skeptical, because from Nana's expression, it did not seem like she was lying. "Of course it's true." Nana proudly raised his head, stared at Tang Zheng with a burning gaze, and said, "So, you also have to reward me with a saint artifact that is even better than Yi Yuan's sword. I don't like that big guy." Mu Hongyan's expression also became serious. She realized that her daughter was not bragging. Regarding her daughter's cultivation, it was always the Empyrean fairy who taught her, and she did not ask too much. In any case, she was very clear that her daughter's strength was higher than hers. He never thought that she would actually be so high that she could defeat Yi Yuan. One had to know that the difference in age between the two of them was huge. Tang Zheng had a straight face as he stared at Nana with bright eyes. His gaze seemed to be able to penetrate her body as he took in her cultivation and strength. Her cultivation had actually reached such a realm unknowingly. He did not know how the Empyrean fairy had taught her this disciple. Her short period of cultivation was equivalent to a lifetime of hard work for others. She was actually also a 9th stage Yuanying, and Yuanying was very lively, like a little baby. Her cultivation was on par with Yi Yuan, so she definitely had a divine ability that Yi Yuan did not have, so it was not too difficult to defeat Yi Yuan. "How did your master teach you?" Tang Zheng could not help but sigh. Nana tilted his head, recalled for a while, and replied, "Master gave me a lot of beans." "Beans?" Tang Zheng and Mu Hongyan looked at each other in dismay. They did not know what kind of bean it was, but it actually had such a miraculous effect. "They are pills, but I like to call them beans," Nana explained. "What kind of pill did the Empyrean fairy give you?" Tang Zheng was shocked, although pills were good things, but of all things, being greedy was not necessarily a good thing. Furthermore, if he gave her too many pills, what if she improved too quickly and went berserk in the future? It was not a good thing to try to grow a seedling. "I don't know what kind of pills they are, but in any case, there are a lot of pills. Master said that most people are worried that if they eat too many pills, their cultivation will increase too quickly, and then they will not be able to control it, and it will be easy for them to go berserk. However, with her by my side, I don't have to worry about these problems at all." Nana raised his head, revealing a proud and complacent expression. It was obvious that he agreed with his master's words. Mu Hongyan looked at Tang Zheng worriedly. This kind of thing was only up to him. Tang Zheng looked at Nana thoughtfully, thinking carefully. The Empyrean fairy's words seemed to have opened a door for him. Although there was suspicion of rushing the seedlings to help them grow, once the process was under control, then there was no need to worry about going berserk. Nana had her as a bodyguard, so there was no need to worry about this problem. The others did not have this advantage, but if there was a way to make up for this danger, then they could use the pills to quickly improve their cultivation. Then what was the most effective way to avoid going berserk? Of course, it was to get rid of the inner demons. Once the inner demons were gone, then there was no need to worry about going berserk. Of course, there was a way to get rid of the inner demons in this world, and he was one of the beneficiaries. However, his cultivation was too low in the past, so he did not dare to have extravagant hopes. But now, his cultivation was very powerful, so perhaps there was a way to solve this problem. Once this problem was solved, the cultivation of the people around him would improve by leaps and bounds. In the future, whether it was against the Dragon Slayers or the Grandmasters, it would be twice the result with half the effort. Clap. He suddenly clapped his hands as he was overjoyed at the unexpected good news. He picked up Nanan and raised her up high as he cheered, "Nanan, you really are a lucky star. You have solved a big problem for me." Although Nana was very confused, she said proudly, "Of course, I'm so powerful. Of course I'm a lucky star." Mu Hongyan did not know whether to laugh or cry. Looking at this happy scene, her heart was incomparably soft. She said coquettishly, "Nana is still so young. You should spoil her." Tang Zheng did not mind and said, "I'm serious." "Then what problem did she solve for you?" Tang Zheng smiled mysteriously, "You'll know in the future." "Nana, you want a holy tool, right?" "Don't worry, brother will fulfill your wish. Wait for me to collect the materials, then I'll refine a holy tool for you." But Nana's eyes lit up. She raised her fist and cheered. "Then you two play first. I happen to have an idea. I'll go do something for a while." Tang Zheng put down, gave Mu Hongyan a look, and said, Nana was back. The two of them could not do anything with real swords and spears, so they might as well go back to the room to test their ideas. Mu Hongyan looked at him bitterly. She had no choice but to nod in agreement. The bonfire party outside was still lively. Tang Zheng had already returned to his room. He calmed himself down and used his supernatural powers. Counting the days, it had been a month since he last entered Langya Pavilion. It was just right for him to enter again. Sigh. The Dragon Slayers can enter Langya Pavilion at any time. If I can still only enter once a month, then if they come in, even with the precautions set up by me and the Dragon King, it may not be 100% safe. Just in case, I have to have a way to enter Langya Pavilion at any time. Then I can successfully stop the Dragon Slayers. This time, I have to think of a way to achieve these two goals. Chapter 1624. In Langya Pavilion, Tang Zheng went straight to the 4th floor and saw the exorcism mirror in the center of the empty space. It was as tall as a person. The exorcism mirror was made of an unknown material. It was completely black and engraved with complicated patterns. It looked like a circle of lace wrapped around the mirror. He walked straight to the exorcism mirror. His figure appeared in the mirror. It was incomparably clear. There were no more illusions, and there was no black chi on his body. This was because the black chi represented the inner demons. The inner demons had been eliminated, so naturally, it was incomparably clean. He walked around the exorcism mirror and looked it up and down. He had never thought of this before, so naturally he had not carefully sized up the exorcism mirror. Now that he had carefully observed and thought about it, he muttered to himself thoughtfully, I can't bring anyone else into Langya Pavilion. Naturally, I can only take the exorcism mirror out, just like taking other magic treasures. However, if I take it away, the other dragons won't be able to exorcise the inner demons. He pinched his chin and stared at the exorcism mirror with bright eyes. After a long time, he slapped his thigh and said, I've got it. If I can return the exorcism mirror, won't this problem be solved? However, this was not an easy task. In the past, after he took away the magic treasures, he had thought about whether he could return them to Langya Pavilion. However, he failed after trying. He could take the magic treasures from Langya Pavilion, but he could not return them. This was a one-way process. It didn't work in the past, but it doesn't mean it won't work now. He shook his head, and his gaze gradually became determined. Bang! He grabbed the exorcism mirror with both hands, but it did not move at all. Rise! He growled and exerted force with both hands. However, he found that the exorcism mirror was as heavy as 1,000 kilograms, but it still did not move. He let go of his hands and looked at the exorcism mirror in surprise. This mirror was really strange. He could not move it, let alone take it out of Langya Pavilion. Brute force won't work. I have to think of another way. He did not give up. With a thought, a mighty aura rose from his body. Bang! His hands landed on the exorcism mirror again. The exorcism mirror buzzed and trembled. He had already used his divine power. The power was unimaginable. But even so, the exorcist mirror only trembled and did not actually leave the ground. Tang Jing exhaled heavily. The muscles in his arms trembled, but he did not achieve the desired effect. I can even move Mount Buzhou. Do you think I can't move a mere mirror? He gritted his teeth, unwilling to admit defeat. He might as well go all out against the exorcist mirror. Bang! He used the sky-swallowing technique, and 2 black holes spread out in his palms. The violent suction force produced a huge vortex. The 2 black holes merged into one and the black light completely enveloped the exorcist mirror. The exorcist mirror trembled violently and gradually left the ground. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up. He was overjoyed. Ah, the sky-swallowing technique is indeed powerful. Even the exorcist mirror is unable to withstand its immense power. Of course, he would not allow the exorcist mirror to be sucked into the black hole. That would be equivalent to entering the heavenly realm. If the exorcist mirror turned into a wisp of energy, wouldn't all his previous efforts be wasted? He would also destroy an extremely important treasure. Since the sky-swallowing technique could shake the exorcist mirror, he could use the sky-swallowing technique to control the exorcist mirror when he was about to leave. Then they would leave together. He believed that this was a workable method. He was relieved. He did not expect to have such a huge gain and complete his first goal not long after entering the Langya Pavilion. He was about to cancel the sky-swallowing technique when he realized that the black light suddenly flashed. Even the Langya Pavilion trembled. The space seemed to have become unstable. Ah, what's going on? He hurriedly looked around. The place seemed to be on the verge of collapse as if there was an earthquake. The commotion was so huge that it made one tremble in fear. He did not expect this change, but he vaguely guessed that it was related to the sky-swallowing technique. Indeed, the sky-swallowing technique was not an ordinary spell. The sky-swallowing technique was equivalent to the spatial door of the heavenly realm, and the world inside the dragon seal was equivalent to another small world. This world was not as stable as he had imagined. Otherwise, it would not be so small. The heavenly realm was a bigger world than this world. The strength of the energy contained in the two could not be compared at all. The black hole was created here, and it had a violent impact on this space. In the past, he had used the sky-swallowing technique in the dragon seal to absorb the souls of the dragon slayers, but there were no such strong side effects. That was then and this was now. At that time, his sky-swallowing technique was not as powerful as it was now. Now, he had cultivated the sky-swallowing technique to the highest realm, sky-swallowing. Now that he used the sky-swallowing technique in the dragon seal, the impact on this space was very strong. It made the Langya Pavilion on the verge of collapse. This world seemed to be about to collapse. The dragon seal was the holy land of every dragon. It was equivalent to the spiritual source. It was a huge treasure. If the dragon seal collapsed, it would be a devastating blow to the dragon race. Although Tang Jing did not think so much, he realized that something was wrong. This was definitely related to his sky-swallowing technique, so he had to stop it immediately. Just as he had this thought, the power of the sky-swallowing technique increased wildly. The light that enveloped the exorcist mirror suddenly flashed and was sucked into the black hole with a whoosh, disappearing. Then, Tang Zheng had time to withdraw the sky-swallowing technique and make the black hole disappear. However, the fourth floor had already become empty, and there was no longer the exorcist mirror. The Langya Pavilion stopped trembling, and everything returned to normal. However, Tang Zheng widened his eyes and looked around. He did not know whether to laugh or cry at this scene. His sudden idea had almost caused a disaster. Moreover, how was he going to end this? If the exorcist mirror was sucked into the heavenly realm, wouldn't it turn into a wisp of energy? All his previous efforts would be wasted. Suddenly, his heart skipped a beat, and a strange expression appeared on his face. The heavenly realm was connected to his mind, and any movement in the heavenly realm would appear in his heart. Therefore, he immediately discovered the abnormality in the heavenly realm. After a wave of fluctuations appeared in the heavenly realm, the exorcist mirror actually appeared out of thin air in the sky. It floated gently like a cloud, and did not turn into a wisp of energy as he was worried. The exorcist mirror was intact. He was overjoyed and could not help but cheer. Haha, the exorcist mirror is actually fine. The heavens are really helping me. This was really full of twists and turns. His heart was like riding a roller coaster, reaching the peak one moment and then falling into the abyss the next. His good mood did not last long, and his expression instantly froze. This was because once the exorcist mirror entered the heavenly realm, he would not be able to take it out. The heavenly realm could only be entered and not exited. It had always been like this. Although the exorcist mirror was intact, wouldn't it be useless? Wouldn't all his previous efforts be wasted? For the latest novel updates, please visit the website. Chapter 1625. I can't use the exorcist mirror. Time is of the essence, so I'll deal with the other matter first. He looked around, carefully sizing up the space of the Langya Pavilion. There was a limit to how long every dragon could stay in the Langya Pavilion, and they could only enter once a month. He wanted to see if he could break this limit. This is also a space, but it's not as vast and complicated as the human world or the sky beyond heaven. Of course, it's also not comparable to the heavenly realm. I'm well versed in the laws of space, so it's not impossible for me to break this limit. He was full of confidence, so he simply closed his eyes and operated the laws of space, quietly feeling the wonders of this world. Only the dragon race could reach this world, and they had to go through the dragon mark on their forehead. This was the peculiarity of this world, a feature that other worlds didn't have. This showed that when the dragon race's ancestors created this world, they had considered it and made the corresponding preparations. It was completely different from other worlds. Other worlds could be passed through the spatial door, but this didn't apply to the dragon seal world. He gently touched his forehead, and his thoughts moved. He was afraid that the spatial door of this world had fused with the dragon race's dragon mark, so only the dragon race could open it. His guess wasn't wrong. Back then, the dragon race's ancestors had spent a lot of effort to create the dragon seal world, creating a top-secret world for the dragon race. Naturally, they wouldn't allow outsiders to enter, so they specially set up various restrictions and thresholds for the dragon seal world. Tang Zheng was well versed in the laws of space, and had rich experience in passing through space. Furthermore, his cultivation was profound, and he was also from the dragon race. When he calmed down and used his divine ability, he gradually felt the mysteries of the dragon seal world. Tang Zheng discovered that his divine sense was drifting, merging into the darkness. His divine sense spread out in the darkness, as if he was searching for something. It was like looking for a needle in a haystack, with little hope. He couldn't completely explain what was going on, but he had a premonition that this was definitely the effect of the laws of space. Therefore, he didn't deliberately stop it, but allowed this feeling to spread. He was like a ghost, drifting in the darkness, looking for the light of dawn. He didn't know how long this feeling lasted. Finally, the light of dawn appeared. This wasn't true light, but a mysterious connection that appeared between him and the dragon seal world. He was overjoyed as if he had obtained a treasure. His divine sense extended endlessly at an extremely fast speed from the Langya Pavilion to the outside. The area shrouded by the thick fog became clear to him. It was completely displayed in his mind. Not long after, his divine sense arrived at the inverted Langya Pavilion. In a short period of time, he toured the entire Dragon Mark world. This was something that could never have been done in the past. However, he now had some kind of mysterious connection with the Dragon Seal world. All of this was easy and natural. Although he couldn't reach the level of knowing the heaven realm like the back of his hand, he could still sense the other worlds. He suddenly had a flash of inspiration. All of this must be the effect of the space laws. The space laws resonated with the space laws, resulting in such an effect. However, it was not easy to achieve this. Perhaps there were many factors that contributed to his success, and one of them was the advantage of the Dragon Clan. Could this situation be transferred to other places? For example, the human world. If he could completely control everything in the world and travel the world spiritually, would nothing be able to escape his eyes? The so-called clairvoyant eyes and clairvoyant ears were far inferior to this point. Of course, it wasn't easy to achieve this, but he immediately thought of another point: heavenly chess. With heavenly chess, wouldn't everything be under his control? If he combined heavenly chess with his space laws, wouldn't it produce a miraculous chemical reaction and complete his plan? This was something that Ji Wuxiang couldn't do back then, because he didn't understand the space laws. However, Tang Zheng was well versed in the space laws, and had the experience of traversing through space. It was like adding wings to a tiger. How could he miss such a good opportunity? He had never thought of this before. Now that he had a flash of inspiration, he thought of this point. He was extremely excited and wanted to test it out immediately. With great difficulty, he suppressed the excitement in his heart and calmed himself down. He focused his attention on the Dragon Seal world, strengthening and consolidating this connection. In the past, he had always been forced to leave the Dragon Seal world. Now that he had this mysterious connection, he had a plan in his heart and decided to test it out to see if he could leave on his own. He took a deep breath and activated his divine ability, pushing his comprehension of the laws of space to the extreme. The air around him became blurry, rippling like water. He disappeared. In the next second, he left the Langya Pavilion, and his divine sense returned to his body. He suddenly opened his eyes and stared at the ceiling with a burning gaze. The corner of his mouth rippled with joy, and his hands involuntarily clenched into fists. I finally took the initiative to leave the Dragon Seal world. This was equivalent to completing half a step. Next, he would have to go in again. This would be more difficult than coming out, because he had to break the original restrictions of the Dragon Seal world. He didn't stop and used his divine ability once again. The dragon mark on his forehead immediately blossomed with a resplendent golden light. His divine sense didn't immediately enter the Langya Pavilion, but established a connection with the Dragon Seal world. Only when this connection was strong to a certain level could he enter again. He continuously activated the space laws, and the power in his body was like a surging river, violently flowing through his meridians. The surrounding air rippled, as if there were waves splashing. His expression was solemn to the extreme. He gritted his teeth and clenched his fists, causing his veins to bulge. Golden light slowly spread from his forehead to his entire body. Not long after, his entire body was bathed in golden light. Pieces of golden scales appeared on the surface of his body, like a layer of golden armor. He appeared incomparably awe-inspiring. Roar! Suddenly, he raised his head, and a dragon's roar burst out from his throat, resounding throughout the villa. On New Year's Eve, it instantly attracted everyone's attention. Fortunately, there was a restriction in this place. Otherwise, the dragon's roar would have definitely spread throughout the entire capital, and who knows how much of a commotion it would cause. Golden light flickered intensely. Tian Chanzi and the rest had already rushed in after hearing the roar. They only saw a dazzling golden light filling the entire room, making them unable to look straight at it. Tang Zheng was coincidentally in the center of the golden light. Whoosh! Chapter 1626. Tang Zheng's eyes widened as he looked at himself in disbelief. He stretched out his 5 fingers and groped around his body a few times, confirming that this was his real body. He raised his head and looked over. The Langya Pavilion was quietly standing in front of him. Damn it! How did my physical body come in here? Although he thought that he would succeed, he never thought that his physical body would enter the Dragon Seal world instead of his divine sense. He let out a long breath and accepted this reality. Since he was already here, he might as well make the best of it. Since his physical body could enter, he would see what benefits there were. Hidden profound sword. He shouted loudly as a dazzling sword light burst out from his body. It soared into the sky and floated above his head. His gaze revealed a trace of surprise as he stared at the hidden profound sword. He never thought that once his physical body entered, he would be able to summon the hidden profound sword. After all, the hidden profound sword had fused with his physical body, so he also brought his magic treasure in. This way, if I encounter a dragon slayer in the Dragon Seal world, my battle strength will increase by a lot. With a wave of his hand, the hidden profound sword once again fused into his body and disappeared. The corner of his mouth hooked up into a smile as he urged the law of space. Everything became subtle again as ripples appeared in the air. He disappeared from the Dragon Seal world. In the next second, he appeared in front of Tian Chanzi and the others. Everyone was bewildered as they watched Tang Jing disappear in front of them. Before they could figure out what was going on, a figure suddenly flashed and Tang Jing appeared again. He was no different from before, but the golden scales had already disappeared. Everyone was shocked as they stared at him, their eyes filled with question marks. What happened to his body? Looking at everyone's gaze, Tang Jing smiled indifferently and said, "Don't worry, everyone can disperse." Regarding the Dragon Seal world, other than the Dragon Clan, it was indeed inappropriate to tell others too much. Moreover, no one else could help with this matter. Everyone was bewildered as they gradually dispersed. Only Tang Jing was left in the huge room. He had not had the time to digest his gains, especially thinking of a way to take the Exorcist mirror out of the heaven realm. This was a top priority. With a thought, his consciousness entered the heaven realm and surrounded the Exorcist mirror tightly. The Exorcist mirror began to vibrate as if it had sensed his consciousness. The Exorcist mirror didn't move at all when it was in the Langya Pavilion. Now that I've left the Langya Pavilion, it reacted to my divine sense. Fine, then I'll see if I can help you leave the heaven realm. He had absolute control over the heaven realm. Therefore, with just a thought, the Exorcist mirror flew up with a whoosh and soared into the sky, trying to break through the invisible spatial restraints and leave the heaven realm. Bang! With a loud bang, the Exorcist mirror collided with an invisible barrier. It shook violently but did not leave the heaven realm. He let out a long sigh. It seemed that he had been too optimistic and had underestimated the heaven realm. However, he did not give up. He thought to himself, once the Exorcist mirror left the heaven realm, it would open up the connection between the heaven realm and the outside world. In the future, the heaven realm would no longer be a useless place. Instead, it would be able to play a huge role. Therefore, he quickly calmed his mind and made a comeback. This time, he did not use brute force. Instead, he used the spatial law. In the past, he had tried to let the things in the heaven realm leave. However, that invisible barrier made him helpless. He did not know if he would succeed this time. As soon as he used the spatial law, his connection with the heaven beyond heaven became even closer. He was originally the master of the heaven beyond heaven. At this moment, his consciousness and the heaven beyond heaven became one. It was as if he was the heaven beyond heaven and the heaven beyond heaven was him. This feeling was very mysterious and unprecedented. He was enlightened. His consciousness once again wrapped tightly around the Exorcist mirror. The Exorcist mirror immediately emitted a ball of light. It did not shake as violently as before. Swoosh! A dazzling light shot out from the Exorcist mirror. It descended from the sky and illuminated the heaven and earth of the heaven realm. All the plants and trees were enveloped by this light. Even the tree of life was no exception. Wisps of black gas slowly rose from all living things. It was like smoke rising in spirals. It was exceptionally spectacular. Tang Jing was shocked. He looked at this scene in disbelief. Of course, he recognized this scene. This was the process of the Exorcist mirror expelling the inner demons. All living things had spirits, and all living things also had inner demons. The Exorcist mirror had directly expelled all the inner demons in the heaven realm. Immediately, the tree of life also glowed. It actually grew a little taller. Wow, the effect is so good. He could not wait to get the Exorcist mirror out of the heaven realm. He quickly focused and held his breath. The spatial law was used to the extreme. Buzz. The surrounding air vibrated violently. Ripples spread in all directions. It was a spectacular sight. Is it going to succeed? He seemed to have sensed something. A stream of air spun rapidly in the sky and gradually turned into a black vortex. It was very similar to the scene when he used the sky-swallowing skill. This black vortex quickly turned into a black hole. The black light gradually wrapped around the exorcist mirror. The light on the exorcist mirror was also swallowed by the black hole. Gradually, the exorcist mirror disappeared into the black hole. The exorcist mirror completely disappeared and left the heaven realm. Tang Zheng was dumbfounded. He never thought that his sudden idea would actually succeed. He had tried so many times and failed, but this time he actually succeeded. It seemed that he had a deeper understanding of the spatial law after traveling through space several times. All of this had benefited him greatly. In addition, his cultivation had also increased by a lot. This was also a big help. Both were indispensable. Only then would he have a chance to succeed in one go. He was wild with joy. In this way, wouldn't the heaven realm and the outside world be connected? Once this passage was opened, the benefits to him would be self-evident. However, he did not let the ecstasy go to his head. He quickly retracted his divine sense and found that the exorcist mirror was quietly placed beside him. The exorcist mirror had successfully come out of the heaven realm. The passage between the two worlds had been successfully opened. He waved his fist a few times, unable to hide his joy. He walked around the exorcist mirror. The more he looked at it, the happier he became. He could not help but mutter to himself, "The exorcist mirror is a magic treasure, and a sacred tool at that. Its function is to expel inner demons. This is something that other magic treasures can't compare to. The exorcist mirror is an ownerless item. How can I recklessly waste a heavenly treasure? If I drip blood on it to recognize it as its master, the effect of expelling inner demons might be even better." He became restless. He stretched out his finger and forced a drop of blood out from his fingertip. The drop of blood landed on the exorcist mirror and immediately rippled with a bloody light. The blood turned into thousands of wisps and swam through the entire exorcist mirror. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1627. Blood covered the exorcist mirror, especially on the surface of the mirror. It was like a spider web made of blood, leaving a deep impression. Suddenly, with a flash of blood light, the blood light completely merged into the mirror and disappeared. Master recognition successful. The exorcist mirror had become Tang Zheng's magic treasure. Master! The exorcist mirror's voice sounded in Tang Zheng's mind. The corner of Tang Zheng's mouth hooked up into a faint smile and asked straightforwardly, "Exorcist mirror, other than exorcising inner demons, what other effects do you have?" "Master, not only can I exorcise inner demons, I can also seduce inner demons." The exorcist mirror replied methodically. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up. He was overjoyed. He had originally asked casually, but he did not expect there to be such a pleasant surprise. Not only could the exorcist mirror expel inner demons, it could also seduce inner demons. As a cultivator, he knew very well what it meant to seduce inner demons. If he was facing an enemy, once the enemy's inner demons were seduced, their fighting strength would decrease sharply, and they would go berserk. How could they still have the strength to fight? Therefore, when facing an enemy, the exorcist mirror could play a pivotal role. Haha, the heavens are helping me to actually let me have such a sacred tool. Tang Zheng laughed loudly. Originally, I wanted to return it to Lang Ye, but now it seems that I can't do that. In front of a strong enemy, the exorcist mirror can help me. If I return it, it would be a waste of God's gift. Even if there are dragons who need to exorcise inner demons, I can personally exorcise inner demons for them in the future. He nodded to himself and made his decision. He gently stroked the exorcist mirror with his finger. Ripples appeared on the surface of the exorcist mirror. Then, with a flash of light, the exorcist mirror disappeared into the Sumeru world. Back then, Yi Meiyu's traceless dream spell could create illusions and confuse people's minds. It had many similarities to the exorcist mirror's effects, but she definitely couldn't be compared to the exorcist mirror. If I see Meiyu again, I will definitely let her have a taste of the exorcist mirror. The New Year's bell had already rung. They came to the front of the bonfire in the villa. Looking at the lively scene of singing and dancing, he did not disturb them. It was rare for the sorcerer tribe to have time to relax. These few days, they would treat it as a vacation. What awaited the sorcerer tribe was even more brutal training and cultivation. After the spring festival, he would personally use the exorcism mirror to expel their inner demons. Then he would refine many pills to rapidly increase their cultivation. As for the heaven realm, although Tang Jing had already opened up a passage between the two realms, it was still unknown whether people could safely pass through the passage and whether they would be turned into waves of energy like before. Therefore, for the sake of safety, he would not use the lives of the witches for experiments. He would only make a decision when he used the sky-swallowing technique to deal with enemies in the future and see if the enemies were sucked into the heaven realm and turned into energy. He looked at the window of Mu Hongyan's room and a bitter smile appeared on his face. It was so close, but because of Nana, she did not dare to sneak in through the window. Nana, this little girl, was getting older and smarter. There were still many things that he had to avoid from her. How could he teach a child the wrong thing? He took a deep breath and could only endure it as he returned to his bedroom. He lay on the bed and looked at the ceiling. There was a restless aura in his heart that kept stirring. Ever since it was past 12 o'clock and the new year had arrived, this restless feeling had gradually become stronger. At first, he did not pay much attention to it, but now that it was late at night, this feeling was especially clear. He tossed and turned, unable to sleep, and muttered in his heart, "What's wrong with me? Could it be that I really can't sleep without a woman? I'm not that kind of man." He shook his head and hurriedly channeled his energy to suppress the restless flames in his heart. He fell asleep in a daze. Late at night, a muffled sound came from Tang Zhang's body. This sound was not loud, as if something had broken. Then his body immediately released a blazing aura. It was as if a wave of heat had been aroused from his body. But he did not wake up. He still had his eyes closed, and there was a pained expression on his face. Kacha! Suddenly, the door lock was gently twisted. A figure flashed into the room at the door and ran straight to Tang Jing, who was on the bed. "You little rascal, in the middle of the night you still dare to lure people to sneak in. See how I deal with you later." It turned out that Mu Hongyan had taken advantage of the time when Nana was asleep to sneak into Tang Jing's room. But Tang Jing did not wake up. It was as if he had turned a deaf ear to her. Still pretending to be asleep. Mu Hongyan wrinkled her delicate nose. She was very clear that with Tang Zhang's cultivation, she would definitely not be able to escape his detection as soon as she entered the room. But he still did not move. It was obvious that he was doing it deliberately. She simply tiptoed to the bedside and glanced at Tang Zhang, who had his eyes closed. A mischievous smile appeared on her lips. She tiptoed and directly pounced on him. Bang! The two of them crashed into each other. Mu Hongyan thought that he would catch her, but she did not expect that she would crash into him heavily. This was greatly beyond her expectations. She did not care about the pain in her body. She greeted Tang Zhang's chest with her fist and complained, "Who told you to be naughty? You didn't catch me. Now you hurt me." Suddenly, her voice came to an abrupt stop, as if someone had choked her throat. Her eyes became strange. She lowered her head and stared at Tang Zhang. "Ah!" she exclaimed, and her face suddenly changed. She hurriedly hugged Tang Zhang's head and shouted, "Tang Zhang, what's wrong with you? Wake up quickly." But Tang Zhang did not move at all. He was like a piece of wood. No matter how she shook him, he did not respond at all. Now she knew that things were serious. The two of them had not been separated for long before he became like this. No one would have thought that he would be like this. As for his specific situation, she was even more confused. So she hurriedly grabbed Tang Zhang's wrist and tried to use her qi to explore his specific situation. Bang! However, a huge rebounding force hit her hand directly. As if she had been electrocuted, she actually flew off the bed and almost fell to the ground. She awkwardly stood firm and stared blankly at the bed. Tang Jing still did not move, as if all of this had nothing to do with him, as if he was not involved. She had never seen him like this. Could it be that he was sick? Could cultivators get sick? She could not be sure. She had never heard of it. Could it be that the pure yang energy had erupted? She had an idea and another idea came up, but she immediately rejected it. Because she knew very well what kind of scene the eruption of pure yang energy was like. It was definitely not like this wooden block. If she was lying on top of him, he would have already taken action and absorbed the pure yin energy. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.